She doesn't think she's sustainable.
Okay. Sure. I'll come back again.
Okay. I'll do it for her. Oh no, not again. How much trouble I get you
I told Mitch, I said, so public comment with Mike Will about 9:30.
We'll call to order the meeting of the Winter City Council on Tuesday, October 16th. Can we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Councilmember Anderson?
Here.
Cowan? Lauren? Here. New?
Here.
Mayor Biazzi?
Here. Thank you. And if you could all rise, Supervisor Sanders, can you please send the pledge of allegiance, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, approval the agenda.
Mayor and Council, there are no changes to the agenda.
Motion and a second.
I'll say it.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passed unanimously. Okay, we have public comments for any items which are not on tonight's agenda. Let's see, I have a few papers here that I think. Yeah, I'm sorry. But, Councilmember Moore. go ahead.
All right, staff comments. On Wednesday, October 3rd, I participated in the League of California Cities new directors training. On October 8th, I participated in the League Sacramento Valley Region conference call and agreed to invite the whole Sacramento Valley region to Winners on July 26th. It's going to be a Fourth Friday. Hope it's going to be a great event. October 10th, I attended a Winners Cemetery District Board meeting to help plan our Dia de los Muertos first annual celebration, which will be on November 2nd. On October 11th, I participated in open poetry night at Berryessa Gap. On October 12th, met at Peter Creek Council for a Dry Creek Committee meeting. We are going to have a public meeting on November 18th, public land owner meeting for weed abatement along Dry Creek. It will be at the fire safety building. One area of concern is highly flammable arundo that is growing in some spots, as we just saw with the fire. October 12th, I attended the Winners Theater production of War of the Worlds. Everybody did a great job. And October 15th, met with City Manager John Donlevy to review tonight's agenda. And then before this meeting, many of us went out for the ribbon cutting at our great new Walnut Park.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll begin with on Monday evening, October 8th, I attended the Yolo County Transportation District Board meeting in Woodland. On Wednesday morning of October 10th, I attended the Air Quality Management District Board meeting in Davis. And also Tuesday, October 9th, attended the Classic Car Show on Main Street.
Thank you. Councilmember Leo?
On October 3rd, Wednesday, went to the over-the-counter permit meeting, see how that went, and find out what was going to happen. And then on the 4th of October, I went to SACOG's land use and natural Resources. The 9th, I went to the car show on Main Street, and on the 10th, I met with our city manager for about an hour and a half, and we discussed the general plan refresh and how it coordinates with the strategic plan. Again, on the 10th, the Yolo County Housing Meeting. And on the 13th, went to a fundraiser for Winners Healthcare Foundation. And then today I met with city manager to review tonight's agenda. That's it.
And let's see, on the 8th, I attended the chamber mixer where they had the rib cook-off. I had the privilege of being a judge for that. Congratulations to Chef Jason from Green River up there. Great, good mixer. On the 11th, I attended the Economic Development Committee meeting. On the 12th, I attended the chamber board meeting. On the 15th, I met with the city manager to go over the agenda. And we were at the ribbon cutting just earlier, about an hour ago, to dedicate Walnut Park officially. And there was some representatives from the state parks there. It was really good to see in the background, there's kids out there playing in the park, people walking along the trails, and just to see the success that we've had out there at that park, it was really good. So, thank you all for your time and your hard work at your committee assignments. And keep up the good work. So let's see, we'll move on now to public comments or anything that's not on the agenda. I have a couple of papers that were turned in, which I think these are not the items. Terry Ostomer. We'll speak about the impact of the wall being built out there. If you could come up to the microphone and state your name, please.
Hi, I'm Terry Ostomer. Let's go ahead then.
Yes.
Okay. This is a bit out of my comfort zone to come and talk here, but my husband and I only just learned about the meeting yesterday afternoon, and we have some concerns that we'd like to share so they can be discussed. We live at the current end of Main Street, immediately adjacent to the retention pond that's becoming a sanitary pump station next to the large new developments on West Main Street. And our home there has the greatest impact as a result of a wall that's surrounding the pump station area. So we are requesting the proposed wall along our property be modified to a lower height, more like our current fencing. And I had wanted to read a letter that we're writing, but I see I have a limited time. Having a little challenge in visualizing what's actually happening, and as an artist, it's difficult for me to understand that there's going to be multiple heights to the wall and that it's going to be 10 feet right outside our view field along the whole side of our house as far as we're understanding. So we were requesting a modification of the height along our property. And a chance to review current plans. We've only seen very small ones that are hard to discern. We feel like as the home that's most impacted, that warrants some consideration and accommodation to shorten the height of that wall. Okay.
Thank you. So what we can do tonight is we'll take your comments. We can't really speak to it because it's a non-agendized item, but we will definitely look into it. See what we can do. Thank you. The next one I have is from Sajid Singh. Excuse me.
Thank you for pronouncing that correctly too. I wasn't sure with my handwriting. My name is Sajid Singh and I'm from City of Williams up the road. And I wanted to come to Winters and to a council meeting. I'm a planning commissioner and a trustee at the Sacramento Valley Museum, and I look at Winters as a place to emulate. I think that we are growing, and I like how Winters is balancing that. And I'm particularly impressed with the downtown. And as I've been here before and I walk through it, it's vibrant in the sense that people are walking it and they're enjoying the space. And right now we have a downtown in Williams that is dilapidated to a certain extent. And so I want to acknowledge how good of a job that the city is doing. And it's something that I want our town to emulate. So thank you for that.
Appreciate hearing from people like you, comments like that. Let's see. Kate, did you want to speak about the general plan refresh? Or do you want to wait? I mean, it's an agenda item as a.
No, I have
or-
a very quick public comment.
Okay, yes, important. Take your name for the.
Kate Badish, 400 Morgan Street, number 21. And very quickly, I just want to say on behalf of the lap swimmers, most of whom are out there swimming right now, that we really appreciate the pool being open through October in September. And when we talked with Tracy, and I really appreciate what Tracy and Carla and Tony have been doing with the pool, as well as the pool staff. And so we kind of had a deal that if we could get 13 lap swimmers to pay their $50 for the month before we hit the end of September, that would be able to have lap swim through the end of October. And we hit 14 with a few days to spare. And so I think that speaks to ongoing enthusiasm for this fantastic resource that we have. So thank you for all that.
Thank you. Let's see, Chief Art Mendoza?
Council, want to give you a quick update on the fire we had started yesterday afternoon, about 1:30 p.m. Reports came in as a vegetation fire on the Solomon County side. They requested mutual aid, and we assisted with the chief officer, myself, and with GRAS 26. Upon arrival, we noticed that we had fire on both sides of the creek. There, we're working with with the Dixon fire chiefs. You know, we work very well together. We decided to make two branches. I took care of the Yolo County side, and they took care of the Solomon County side, and together we worked and accomplished to stop the forward progress of the fire. Last night, maybe about 10 p.m., we called it a night. It was a little too hazardous. A lot of snags were falling on crews, and we didn't want to get anyone hurt. So we secured the perimeter last night, and we felt good about it. So throughout the night, we went out and made sure we didn't have any fires come out of our control lines that we established that evening. And throughout the night, we checked on it a couple times. We went down to Valerie's. She heard us all night going up and down her driveway, but we made sure that it didn't jump out of our perimeter lines. Today, we went in the morning to kind of mop up, make sure that everything was out. About 9:30 in the morning, we started getting winds again, and we started having little problems of fires starting out of our containment lines. So we activated CAL FIRE hand crew and Solano County and some agencies from Yolo County. And we spent all day today mopping up, and we went deeper into the burn, approximately 25 to 30 acres that burn in the creek. And I'm glad to say that tonight we have a few stumps burning way in the middle of the burn, not causing any threat. It might be a little smoky, but hopefully we got them all out. The crews worked very hard today, and hopefully we put this fire to bed. So it's a quick update for you guys.
So no structure damage, anything?
No, I was talking to the Solano chiefs. There was one structure that had fire maybe around it, but no damage to it. The cause of the fire was, it was mechanical, some equipment in the creek, and that's been mitigated. So other than that, no injuries, which is very good. We got a little aggressive this afternoon, and the Dry Creek bed, 4 of our units got stuck in the Dry Creek, and we had to call Eric in Public Works to get us out. But we really wanted to get this before tonight and get, we just left there. So, we got a little aggressive with it and, we got stuck. So we decided to back out, but, just want to let you guys know, I think we're gonna be real good. Light smoke maybe, this evening, but I think we're in a good spot.
Thank you to you and all the firefighters who got right on that.
Yeah, the crews were very hard. My team was right on it, and I said, working with Solano, we had that relationship. It was dialed, and it was just like we just did it right, and it was good. And I say easy in the span of mitigating the problem, but for a little bit it was hectic. The winds weren't really in our favor, and once that died down in the evening, we were able to get a handle on it.
Good work. Thank you. Next up, we have Valerie Whitworth.
Valerie Whitworth, 108 with Village Court, and I just wanted to reiterate and support Art in the fantastic job that he did. That fire was traveling from the Burtnoya area down to our house in an hour, and it was taking out big trees, and the crew came down and they just stopped it. They did an amazing job, and they kept going all night. So we have really incredible personnel in this town, and thank you so much, Art. It was a pleasure to have him there. Thank you.
Thank you. The other two that I have, I believe, are agenda items, Valley Clean Energy and General Plan Refresh. So I'll hold on to those until later in the meeting. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak to a non-agendized item? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the consent calendar.
Mayor and Council, a couple of items tonight. Item A are the minutes from the regular meeting on October 2nd. Item B is a resolution in the public improvement and utility easements for the Winners Healthcare Project. That project's just amazing how they're coming out of the ground. Very well done. Item C is a special event permits for the Harvest Festival. In the chamber coming up on October 26th. Item D is a resolution awarding contracts for a CAL FIRE grant, CAL FIRE planning grant. The reality is that it's for both Golden Bear Estates and Positas, which the city has not annexed yet. But it's the city being the administrative side for the Winners Fire District. We're going to take the lead on that. Item E is the request and some seed money to go towards the community dinner. I see Marie here. So there she is. So $1,500 towards the community dinner. And well, in good hands. Item F is a contract agreement with EPS Environmental. We divide the city up into 5 distinct areas. We are doing video inspections of all of our wastewater collection system lines, so that's for this contract. Item G is just an information item. One of the things that we're working on through the YOLO Climate Compact and some of the things that Carol Sand is doing as our environmental services manager. There's a community dialogue. We've got a number of volunteers from within the community that are going to be working on specific the issues of heat and its relation to climate. Carol's put together a nice, very diverse group of folks. They're going to be giving up some time each week over a period of time to participate really in a region-wide discussion about climate change. And finally, item H is just an information item for the city council. Councilmember New and I met as a way of kind of highlighting various sections of the general plan. Starting in February on a monthly basis, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start bringing each element of the city's general plan to maybe talk about a little bit, give some of the highlights of how we're implementing that section of the city's general plan and give a chance for maybe a little bit of community dialogue as it goes forward. But, we've gone through, we've put quite a bit of information on our website on the status of various areas, but this will be a chance over the course of about a 10-month period to talk about a little bit more. And that's the consent calendar.
Thank you. Any questions on the consent calendar? Any comments? Councilmember Anderson will not be voting on item C due to conflict of interest.
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
So, we're going to take a public comment, so that now I know you have one related to an item that's on the consent calendar, I believe.
For, let's see, the Valley Clean Energy, the general plan refresh. We can take it now, or we can talk about it when we talk about the strategic planning calendar.
Was that what she edited for?
It was mine.
Bonnie?
Yeah, I intended it for the strategic planning.
Okay. And also Kate, I think. as well.
I'll do it wherever it works best.
We can do it either way. No, it will fit in with that. We're gonna more talk about the calendar, but we'll take your comments at that time. Absolutely.
That works fine. I'm here for the duration. So.
Just confirm there's no public comment.
All right, so is there any other public comment on the consent calendar? Marie?
Yes.
Marie Howland, please come forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I'm kind of confused. I'm not sure if it's my 19th year or my 20th year doing the Winners Community Dinner. And it's our opportunity to give back to the people most in need in our town. And in my eyes, that's our seniors, our disabled, and our families that are home alone on Thanksgiving Day and doesn't have anyone to visit them or someone to feed them Thanksgiving meal. And that's just heartbreaking to me. And that's kind of why I got involved with this all this year. And I know that you are going to be consenting or denying asking for seed money again for the funds. The city of Winners has not always sponsored that in all the years that I've done that. So I just want to point that out, that I don't ask every year, but it's getting harder and harder for me to come up with money, let alone the volunteers. And in years past, I know some of you have participated directly with me, and I'd love for that opportunity again. It is on Thanksgiving Day, and it really does brighten their day to have somebody official come to their house and say, someone from city council brought me Thanksgiving dinner. I mean, think about that. That's really affecting our people. And I just think it's a one opportunity to let people know that we care and that we do love them in this town, and everyone knows. So I just want to thank you for that opportunity. And if you want to get involved, everybody has to join. So if you have any questions, just please let me know. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marie. Any other comments on the consent calendar? Okay, seeing no more, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Oh, we have.
Bill, I noticed climate resiliency on that. Do you want to wrap that all in with the strategic plan later? Or, I mean, I'm
Go ahead.
I'm fine with it being there. If that's
Okay, we'll put it in with that discussion on the strategic planning. Strategically planned for climate resilience. Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion. We have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes unanimous. And I would encourage everybody also to get a hold of Marie, and she's looking for volunteers to help. I'm sure we're serving, delivering, all kinds of stuff. And I've had the privilege of doing that the last few years. It really is special to go be able to do this for so people. So if anybody has time on Thanksgiving Day, I'm sure Marie and Gwen both would appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll move on to presentations. The first one we have tonight is Pewter Creek Council's One Creek Restoration Internship Program. Amy Williams.
And Francisco Guzman. First, I just want to thank everybody for coming here to learn about the internship. I'm glad you guys came for this. So it looks like we have a lot going on tonight, so we're gonna keep it short and sweet, but basically. Oh, snipe the slides. Okay. We wanted to come here tonight just primarily because we have a summer internship Food Council does that has been going for a number of years, and for the last 2 years, we've received money from the Hispanic Advisory Committee, and so we wanted to come present to you guys what we did with that support money. And I also brought an intern with me, Francisco. He's been interning with us for the last 2 years, first as an intern and then as a leader, so he's going to present a little bit on his perspective. Oh gosh. I need a little practice. Okay, I think that's my first slide. That went by really quick. Okay. So what is the internship for? Basically, we developed this internship a few years ago, or actually a number of years ago. It was need-based. We needed some people that were interested in coming out and helping us maintain sites and some of our projects. And then it has since developed into something that we're more committed to supporting high school and college age students. There's actually not an age limit on the internship, but that's primarily who comes out to provide experiential learning for them and to basically introduce them to watershed ecology, watershed restoration using Poudre Creek as the site and the Poudre Creek watershed, and also give them an opportunity to work with professionals that are working in this business. So everybody over on the right, all those logos are all the people that the interns met this year. I won't read through all of them, but we have a number of project partners, so it's a really good opportunity for them to meet and work with those people, learn from them. There's 2 roles in the internship. There were 11 positions for regular interns that are coming in for the first time, and then there were 4 positions that we developed in the last 2 years for leaders that can come back the second year or third year and work, function in a leadership capacity. Okay, so the partnership for this internship, we used to have our own interns. UC Davis had their own interns. The Solano County Water Agency had theirs. We all got together, realized we're working on different parts of the creek. We're doing different types of projects. We all have different skill sets. So we decided to form a partnership, let our interns work together 2 days a week for 8 weeks during the summer, so that everyone gets some exposure to all of our different projects and it becomes a more valuable internship overall. We spend half of our time at the Poudre Creek Nursery and the other half of the time at sites, whether they're ours or our project partners or their sites. The internship was funded through a number of sources. There's a lot of matching dollars here. Rayleigh's Family of Fine Foods has a charitable giving program that paid for basically for most of the intern stipends this year, so that's about 40% of this. The Water Agency paid for a number of stipends as well because we work so much in the Poudre Creek Nursery. There are partners there. The Winters Hispanic Advisory Committee contributed a stipend for one of our interns this year out of 15. The City of Davis contributed, and Poudre Creek Council member donations paid the rest of what it costs to run the internship this year. Sorry, that writing is pretty small. That's everybody. So we recruit widely in the area. Winters, Davis, Vacaville, Woodland, West Sacramento, through high schools and junior colleges and universities. But we put a special focus on Winters. We kind of front load our outreach in Winters. We give them a couple weeks lead time because this is our town and we're committed to the students here. This is why we're so happy to partner with the Hispanic Advisory Committee for that reason, to provide extra funding. Our nursery, our activities, as I said, include 24 hours in the nursery. It's a 48-hour internship, 24 hours in the nursery, 24 hours at field sites. I'm going to skip over this part because Francisco will talk a little bit about what he did, but they do a number of things in the nursery. They learn their plants, they care for the plants, they learn how to propagate them and keep the nursery clean so that they don't contract any pathogens that we would spread out to field sites. In the field this year, we had eight work days in the field, 24 hours. The places we visited included Lake Solano Park, the Winters Nature Park Extension, which is the City of Winters sponsor project, The Poudre Creek mitigation site just upstream, that's a Solana County Water Agency project. South Fork Preserve with the city of Davis and their riparian preserve with UC Davis. Photo on the right at the top is at Lake Solano. You're pulling out invasive Himalayan blackberry, and down the bottom is in the riparian reserve where they pulled out a huge pile of arundo. Not very good at this. So that's all I have to say about the internship, just to give you guys a little background and Frank, a little more information about how you
joined the internship. Hello, everyone. My name is Francisco Guzman. I joined the internship with the Poudre Creek Council when I was a senior, or the year after I graduated high school here in town. And it really is a great internship that I am glad that I've joined. What really got me interested in the internship was the posting and the convenient time that it was posted, because it was my second semester at the high school as a senior, and I didn't have an exact idea of what I wanted to do after high school. So it kind of just, when I saw the posting for the internship, it just seemed really fitting because of the background that I have and the requirements that they needed for interns to have. And another thing that really brought me to join the internship was my passion for manual labor with nature, because for the past 10 years now, I've lived on the same farm that me and my family have moved into, and we've done a lot of work with the nature. I can tell you that the house does not look the same from when we moved there. And like all the things that we've done on the farm just kind of really fit well with all the things that we did in the internship. So it just kind of seemed perfect for me to just join. The really biggest part that made me join the internship was my fascination with the Poudre Creek, because over the 10 years that I've lived here, I've only like actually walked along Poudre Creek for like 4 of them. And it just really fascinates me every time when I go from town to the Poudre Creek. It just kind of envelops me with all the nature and just makes me feel at home, I guess you could say. What we did in the internship can be categorized in 2 different things. The first one being the nursery work that we did, and the second being the field work that we did. The nursery work that we mostly did was irrigation management, which consisted of making sure that the piping was working correctly and plants were getting watered, and all the stakes that we drove into the pots that were watering the plants were in certain positions to make sure that they were watered. Plant organization was definitely a crucial part of the internship, because we didn't want to have everything just a mess. And when people wanted to buy plants from the Cal Fire nursery, we wanted to make sure that it'd be easier for them to kind of just look at everything and then see which ones they wanted to buy. Pot solarization as a means of sanitization was a really fun part of the nursery work, because I did a good amount of experimenting with how the pots would be sanitized, because we needed them to be baked, I guess you could say, in 160 for 30 minutes. And we needed to find a more efficient way than having to use propane driven machine to kind of heat it up over those 30 minutes. And instead we used the heat that the summer was producing to kind of just bake them out in the open. And that really was interesting, because I love experimenting with all that kind of stuff. Plant propagation, really fun. You transplant, make sure that the cuttings that you're getting are rooted and that they are planted into the correct pot and all that kind of stuff. To move on to the work that we did in the field, it kind of consisted of trail maintenance, which made sure that weeds weren't in the places that they shouldn't be. The trail was clear so people did not wander off, and all that kind of stuff. The next thing that we did was removal of invasive species, which can be really more damaging to the nature than you think it does. And when you view the invasive species as something more than a plant. It kind of just seems more damaging to the environment and to the ecosystem, which could ultimately lead to a less native site. What I did mostly in the second year was leading small groups of interns to complete tasks that consisted of most of the things that I have said. What I learned because of the internship can be, the list goes on, but to say the general things of it, it gave me a lot of nursery management skills, which helps me a lot at home. It can, I garden a lot, so it just makes it easier for me to manage certain plants and all that kind of stuff. The effect of, another thing that I learned was the effect of invasive plants in an ecosystem, which can be, like I said, more damaging than you think. We see them as not a giant threat, but something that we should avoid having, because it can overall be negatively effective to the ecosystem. Another thing that I learned would be the importance of trail maintenance, because if you don't have the trail as maintenance as you could, the people who are wandering on the trail can wander off and then disturb the ecosystem, which would ultimately lead to something happening like a fire or disturbing a dam that is being built by beavers, which might be helping or not helping the river stream. And the ability to ID certain native plants is really cool, because you get to see what certain willows are what and what they do. The blackberries, the difference between them. There's a invasive and a native species growing out in Lake Solano that we showed a picture of, and we did a lot of clearing out of the invasive one, which led to a dessert that one of the interns made with the leftover blackberries, which was delicious. And one of the greatest things that I got from the internship was more refined leadership abilities. It's awesome to get to work with people that you are as excited to do things with, and you're both learning things, you're both kind of going to complete a task which will ultimately lead you to a satisfying feeling, and it's all great overall. How I apply all the things that I've done in the internship would be where it would involve weed removal at my house and garden management. Mostly the biggest thing that happens, or the biggest thing that helped, was the star thistle. That stuff grows like crazy around where we live. And thank God I learned how to remove some of them, because it was a really big mess. The biggest, most important part for me was finding the major that I wanted to do, because like I said, I didn't have an idea of what I wanted to do after high school. And the internship really drove me to see that the nature route is really something that I should embrace and kind of go on instead of kind of moving on to other things. The internship also gave me a head start on the environmental science class that I wish to take next semester at Solano Community College. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad, because God knows I need a little head start with that, because it's a lot more complicated than I thought it would be. The connections and the opportunities that I made through the internship are really great to see, because they offer me more of a advantage as a younger person growing and wanting to go out there and make it as somebody. And another kind of really important thing for me was added experience to my resume for similar jobs and positions, because I can't really put farm work on there. But working with the internship kind of gives it an official branding, which I'm thankful for. Thank you to the Hispanic community for sponsoring the internship. I really appreciate it. It gave me a really great experience that I probably will not forget.
Patterson.
I didn't know you guys.
It's missed tonight.
Very good.
I'm a little remiss tonight in acknowledging your appearance at the Lower Creek Committee last Thursday. Which you gave a much more in-depth presentation. Very nice to see the progress you're making.
I think everybody on council knows I'm nearly speechless. It just takes my breath away to feel so much hope in the future, to see young people learn so much and also have so much to offer. So thank you for serving. Thank you.
Yes, and I would just like to reiterate that. Thank you, Amy, for steering, all these interns in the right direction. I know we have our section of the creek that's right here on our border. It's a great asset to our community, and if there's a lot more of that creek, it goes a long ways, and there's a lot of work to do out there. So thank you for the students, and you're getting interested in nature and getting them involved. So good job. Let's see, next up, we have a proclamation to participating students for the mural at Lorenzo's Market. Copies?
Yeah, I think our last council meeting, I think Valerie Whitworth was here and Councilmember Kellen mentioned about the incredible project done out at Lorenzo's Market. And I think tonight is just an opportunity to maybe recognize some of the students that did the artwork out there, and hence those proclamations.
So we have representatives from this group that are here tonight. You want to come forward?
Come on, artists.
These children.
Right there. Turn right around.
I should.
So I would just like to say thank you to everyone who worked on this mural. You drive by, when you're driving into town, you look over there on the side and you see that beautiful artwork over there. I think it really adds to, we had a big empty side of the building over there, and to see a mural there, it depicts all the history and things of our community, and it's a job very well done. So we have a proclamation here tonight that I will read it for you, and then we'll present copies of these to you and to everybody who helped on this. So this is a proclamation of the City Council of the City of Winters honoring the student artists for the Highway 128 mural at Lorenzo's Town Country Market. Whereas following this success 2 years ago of a collage mural created by 5 students featuring local figures and iconic symbols of Winters, a summer class curriculum was developed by Winters High School art teacher Kate Humphrey and Jamie Montiel, a local muralist and former student of Sally Paul, who was hired by the Winters Participation Gallery to lead the class. This is the first in a mural series sponsored and executed by the Winters Participation Gallery, where the arts has emerged on the wall of the Winters of the Lorenzo's Town and Country Market, created by the middle school and high school students, featuring the Highway 128 corridor. And the students who contributed their artistic abilities to this first mural in the series include Winters Middle School students Callie Benton, McKenna Clifford, and Ben Nelson. High school students Celeste Garcia Rodarte, Lauren Gomez, Ashlyn Gooden, Christopher Mosqueda Velasquez, April Quezada, Amanda Reynolds, Sabrina Rivas, and Natomas Charter School Leading Edge Academy student Taya Novello. And whereas the Winters Participation Gallery invites any middle school to high school age students to become involved in the second mural in the series, and students who participated in this summer will become mentors for those students selected for the next round of murals. And whereas many people are to thank for this beautification project with the City of Winters, including the aforementioned students, the mural class coordinators, Liz Coleman, Kate Humphrey, Valerie Whitworth, volunteer guest speakers, and at the mural signing event, Gloria Lopez, Woody Friday, Tom Crisp, and the generous support and/or contributions from Valerie Whitworth, Michael Barber, and the Winters Lions Club, Jack Vickery, John Karen Lorenzo, and the Historical Society of Winters. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the City Council of the City of Winters does hereby thank all those involved who participated in providing this beautiful mural for all to see and enjoy. Thank you. Would you like to say anything?
I would just like to thank Valerie Whitworth for starting this whole thing. As a conversation in my classroom at one of the creakiest art tables ever, about how Winters can be beautified even more with art. So it's really, Valerie should be speaking. Valerie, stand up. Come on now.
Kate's the one who pulls it off. I can talk, but she does it. So.
And also, I just want to recognize Lauren is the founder of the art club, the new art club at Winters High School, and she does a ton for art at the high school, with people involved, and it was a hot summer. It was a hot summer. And even though they weren't on the sunny side of the building in the afternoon, it was really hot. And there were, they're all artists, including the muralists. There are some things that happen when artists get together, and they powered through amazingly. The mural that you can see is the result of lots of work, lots of emotional, stuff. And they did it, and they deserve all the recognition. They did really, really good work, as you can see. So congratulations, you guys. Good job.
So, good job. And do you have a site picked out for the next mural in the series?
Well, if anybody knows anybody, let us know. But we have a couple of people that we're bothering right now, that we're bugging, and we're hoping. And we have a possible muralist who's going to remain a secret until he knows that he's going to be our next muralist. But we're working on it. So, we're looking for resources of all kinds and people to be involved. So
there is a donate.
Oh,
button.
and there is a donate button on our Facebook page. So feel free. Every little bit helps. But we're hoping to keep it going as long as we have people who do it.
And I'd like to just add that Rob Cohen has done an incredible job with our Facebook page, and we neglected to get him into that resolution, but he absolutely deserves one by himself, and has worked hard and been in connection with the Historical Society of Winters as well. So thank you, Rob.
Yes. Thank you, Rob. We have copies here, if you could distribute those to the group. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Everybody, it's a job well done. Thank you. Okay, next up, I believe we have a presentation from the Public Works Director, Cesaro.
Now's your chance. Time to go. No offense taken.
You're gonna miss all the good stuff.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. This evening I'll be here giving a presentation just to update the council on our accessibility transition plan. Just to kind of let you know where we started, where we are, where we're going. It seems like every other council meeting, Tracy has assigned me to some presentation or another. And I don't know, it seems like every time I sit down at a staff meeting, it's like, man, here we are again. I don't know what else to talk about after this. So I'm just thinking you guys have got to be getting tired of looking at me because I'm definitely getting tired of looking at it. You notice that presentation, I normally have our group photo up there because I like to kind of promote our guys and give them credit where credit's due. And this time, I wasn't going to do it because I want it to be more about the project and not our group. So I looked at this and I thought, well, that was kind of boring. So I thought, well, I'll change it. I'll put the group photo up, but I'll just kind of do this Devo thing. And I thought that kind of looks weird. So I tried this other one, which is like a watercolor. And then I noticed some people only have half a face and some people don't have a face. And then, so I tried this sketch one. And then it looks like some of them have like masks on, and some of them have an X, and then Elliot in the center, he just looks like a bad dude. So, so I picked this one here because everyone looks the same age, and I thought, I'm gonna check it out. So, the other thing I normally do is dazzle you guys with all the pie charts and all that, but this really could just be a splinter. I don't know if you can see the difference in the color, so I just figured this is what our budget used to be. When we would do sidewalks, curb and gutter, ADA ramps or whatever, this is what we had budgeted for out of our gas tax money. And then, so 17, 18, same thing. Keep in mind, this is just for material costs. It's not the overall cost of, hours, which you're gonna see the difference in a little bit. But this is just what it costs us to get the material, whether it's concrete, truncated domes, rebar, form boards, or whatever it is. So at the request of the council and the city manager, we upped that this last, basically more than doubled it for these next 2 fiscal years. So that's kind of where we are now. And so that's kind of what we're operating off of. This here is just a list that we went to council, I think 2017, to give you a rundown of this is where we're going to start and we're going to go through. And you can see the completed ones. Obviously, there's 3 in the middle. That the Haven and Maine is actually one we're going to start on within the next 2 weeks, and so that one will be done. Next, the ones on 4th and Abbey, and then 4th and Maine. Those I kind of jumped out early and thought I want to do these because we were in the middle of doing the playground structure rebuild, and so I thought that's where we need to do it. But actually, the mayor, not mayor at the time, but gave me some good advice and said, hey, at least they have ramps there. There's other places that don't have any. And so that's where we went to Abbey and Haven. It's a block away from the school. It's right on the corner of the park, the Little League field. And none of those corners had any AD ramps. So that's where we started. And that was the ones we just recently done, not actually where we started. This is just the rest of the list going on, where we're going to go through till 2021. And this thing is going to use it really fast. The list down below is just ones that we did before, that were done before the transition plan was implemented. And then the ones on the right are basically sidewalks that we have to do. All those are basically are all city property, except for one is actually the Wolfskill side, the east side of Wolfskill, which is school property, but we made an agreement with them that if they move the fence, we would do the sidewalk, and we're way behind on getting that done. So that's one of our other projects we got to do. So you've already seen this on our one of the street presentations I gave, but this was the first place we started. It kind of put the transition plan off a little bit, but it's still part of the same thing. Shirley Rollinger School, the school was asking for a crossing guard there, so the crossing guard was actually asking for a crosswalk. And so Carol actually ordered these blinking lights where you push a button and it flashes. So we came in, took out the sidewalk, took out the curb, and basically made some ramps on each side with the little flashers up above so that they have that same thing on both sides. This one here, actually, when Neiman is completed and the main street is kicked through, we're going to flip that one around so that there's one going in each direction, because now there's going to be free traffic. And if that doesn't suffice, then we'll probably just double up with the sign on both sides so that you can see it coming from both directions on both sides of the street. So that's what it looks like now when it's operating, it's flashing, just letting people know that there's something there. So this is how we break it down. And that project there, it was 31 man hours. Material cost was 3 yards of concrete. We got the 2 truncated domes and the equipment hours. And so if you look at labor and you look at equipment, the hours, even if they were the same, if it's different people with different pieces of equipment, those numbers will change based on what we're using or who we're using. So the next one, I apologize for stealing the Google Earth photo again. It was really kind of a pretty photo, and I was going to make up an excuse of why I didn't have one. I just didn't have one, so I got it off of there. So this is the one the council asked us to put this one on the first of our list at the request of one of the residents. And our biggest challenge here was the storm drain right in the middle of that thing. So we had to kind of kick it off to the side a little bit. I was hoping Sal was going to show up. I asked him to be here, and I forgot to remind him today, so I know he just forgot to come. But basically, I just want to kind of give him some recognition, because everything you're going to see here is he's been the lead on all these projects, and he kind of picks the guys, he gets the work done, and he's had to learn a lot. He's had to learn from typical contractor would say, you know, what's the slope? Well, it's a quarter bubble on a level. Well, that doesn't fly when you're sitting in the courtroom and you're saying, what's the slope? So he's had to learn that, number one, you got to get a smart level. You have to calibrate it every time you use it. And then you have to make sure you know what those slopes and those falls are at each location, whether it's a cross slope or a path of travel or a ramp itself. So just given, this is Sal in the middle, Adrian Garcia and Romero Becerra on the left and the right. This one's kind of a quick project. It was, you know, one day to take it out. They poured that little back curve on the backside, keeps the landscape from coming in. And then Sal feels comfortable getting his spot, setting that truncated dome down where he wants it, and then he goes off of that. So second day, pours the curb and gutter, and then they pour the asphalt back. So that's the finished product on that one. So here's the breakdown cost on that. So a little bit more than the other one, more man hours and more equipment hours. This one here, that's Sal. Right there, he thinks I can't see him, so he's standing real skinny because I told him I was going to take a picture and he thought he was out of the way. But this is the first corner we did at Haven and Abbey. And you'll notice that the sidewalks on this side where Sal's standing is a monolithic sidewalk. The curb, it's up against the curb. The other one's more of a traditional, there's landscape in between. And sometimes we'll run into that situation, which is on each corner here, well, 3 of the corners. And other times it's, you know, a monolith on both sides or opposite. And then we'll run into fire hydrants in the middle. So the way we decided to do this is just keep with the pattern of the sidewalk, slope each one down. And then the biggest challenge here is you have a gutter coming in one direction and then another gutter coming in, and they have to tie in and flow. And, you know, it's just all old stuff. So so anyhow, he got out with Ricky and Adrian, and they just went to town, basically set the forms up, and, you know, same thing. This was the first one that he had to deal with. There's a really high road there. This is before we actually took care of the road, but now you can see why we did it. And the fall on the road changes at each location, so it changes how much concrete we've got to go back so that we can keep that 5% slope or less than 5% slope. So this just shows them, once we were done, that's what it looked like before we fixed the road, and then this is why we did what we did, so we can flatten that whole thing out. But you can see, we just kept the direction of the sidewalk in each location. This one here, once again, a little bit more. So cost goes up, we spend more on material, and got more concrete in there. So, and the concrete, that's gone up since we started this, so these numbers could change, you know, in the next week or so. We can do it again, and all of a sudden it costs more. So now we go diagonally across the street, and kind of the same thing. You have the monolith on one and then sidewalk on the other. And this one here, we ended up, it was that barricade is actually back quite a ways. But this is one of the sidewalks that was kind of on a list of, it had about a 2.5 inch lip there. So it was one of those situations where, do we go back and fix that, and then leave 10 feet and then pour another section, or we just take it all out? So we just took it all out, kind of chased a broken end on the other side as well. And same thing, just came in. We had to do a lot of root cutting on the tree there, and to get things, so we can get the sidewalk in. You can see towards he's got to level this thing out and then get the flow. This was the one that we had to move because this street, you can't see it in this picture, but it's really high. So we had to move the flow of the gutter closer to the sidewalk just so that it wasn't, we can level that, that ramp out a little bit going into the street. So that's a finished product there. And then looking at it from this side and then where we, I'm jumping ahead on a picture of where he started the one on the other side. And then this one here, once again, more expensive, more concrete, more man hours, more equipment, costs more money. But once again, we're looking at the material cost when it comes to that $15,000. That's what we're looking at is the $1,150 on that project. This one here, just to point out, there's actually a fence behind there, and this is what we're running into. I know the mayor, his property goes right into a corner, and this, we're gonna have to do it the same way. There's different types of ways you can do a ramp, and the next one you'll see how we did it, but if you don't have the property to do it, because people will landscape out to the edge, then we're gonna have to just take the sidewalks the way we did on the last two. This one here, we asked the property owner if he could trim back his shrubs or if he wanted us to, and he said cut it back as far as you want. And you can see he needs to continue going because we only have half the sidewalk that's exposed there. So this was a quicker job. The guys did it in maybe a couple days. It was just it went smoother for whatever reason. They got in, poured one section one day and one the next, and they were done with it. And obviously you can see $2,900 compared to $63 on the last one. And then this is one that was different. But you can see with the crosswalks coming in the middle, we have the property, it's city property, so we can go as far as we want. The problem is we're in the middle of we're going to run sidewalks down both sides, which this side of the park doesn't have it down Abbey, it doesn't have it down Haven. So the problem we have is once we put this in and we try to tie this in, if you look to the slope of the left of the concrete where the backstop comes down, it's about a 6% slope, but we can't be any more than 2. And so we've got to tie that in somehow. If you look to the right side, you'll see the concrete and there's a big lip there. Eventually, if we try to put a sidewalk between the curb and that lip, we're probably at about a 10% slope. So it's not even close to being ADA compliant. So what we did is we turned the sidewalk up, and then the path of travel is actually going to be in front of the bleachers, and then we'll come behind. You'll notice there's the lights there for the building field. You can't put a sidewalk there either. So the path of travel is going to be in front of the bleachers, back behind that, and then we'll complete it that way. So guys got on the backhoe, tore it up, dug it out, laid it out, got it set to where they want to be, and then they had, once again, a tree right here, so they started chopping away at these roots. And this one here, I just told them to go ahead and just kind of curve the inside, angle out the outside so it looks consistent, but that inside one, rather than cut more of that tree back, we just kind of bent around it. So we have that floor, and on the other side, what we did is we just we cut some of the old concrete back so we can do a gradual tie into the stuff that's just not compliant, and then make sure that what we put in there is. So this is just the guys getting the stuff out there that day. Unfortunately, we timed this wrong. We were doing the other ones in July, and we should have been here in the shade in July. And we're doing this one 2 weeks ago and a week ago, and it's beautiful weather and it's in the shade the whole time, and they gave us wet concrete. So it allowed the guys to tag it. City manager actually pointed it out, so we went back that morning and filled the stuff in. And you can kind of see it down here, but you can't really read what it was. But that's a finished product. We went and put DG in to finish it off. Like I said, the guys, Ricky and Adrian, are the ones that have been working, except for that first one with Mel. And they do a great job, and they're doing a good job of kind of training. I'm on Adrian about making sure he's not the guy that's always just doing concrete and getting concrete, but he's the one on the backhoe doing that as well. So they're cross-training. This one here, a little more expensive, basically because of the man hours that put into it. Obviously more concrete as well, and so runs up the cost. So here's the total cost on the whole project of what we've done so far in the ADA transition plan for all the ones we've done. Material costs, $55.39. We're still have about under $10,000 left to keep going. Just wanted to run you through some of the stuff we did before we started that. We put the ramp in at the community center. It's all dirty right now, but it is what it is. And then we actually put 2 ramps going in there. And then just to point out, some of the stuff is not just ADA ramps that we do. This whole thing, when we built this conference room next door, we ripped out a lot of concrete just to be able to put this back because of the fall on there, and it's just not compliant. So obviously we need to continue and finish the rest of it here. But I just kind of want to show the council that there's a lot of other stuff that we do to make things compliant. The futsal court, we're running the sidewalk up so, to make that accessible. But on top of that, when we started well, I say not the first, but the one before the last park rehab project in 2016, when our park committee was about 2 people. One of the important things to me was to get accessibility into the park. And so that was one of the things we did. We poured over 40 yards of concrete just so that we would have sidewalks that go through the park, which they never had before. So basically, here's your finished product. So it's not a part really of the accessibility plan, but in my opinion, it is because we're doing it for specific reasons to be able to allow people, whatever the disability would be, is to be able to get in there and enjoy what we have at the park. This is just another different style. This was we were just out there today at the Walnut Park. It's in the garden. The shed was built about 1 foot high, so we need to kind of make a ramp up to that. And this time we just decided to use DG and just pack it down. And that way we're not trying to build a big ramp. If you do things a certain way, it just causes problems. So this seems to work out so far. And I just kind of want to point out one thing good about what's going on is anything new, it gets done right. So, if you want to look at percentages of what part of our town has accessible ramps that are actually compliant, not just old school ones, but the ones that are supposed to be. With all the development going on, at least that percentage wise, we're coming back. And we have a long way to go, but I just kind of wanted to point that out. So this really didn't have anything to do with the SB1 project that we did, but the funding was used for the HUDA, the Highway User Tax Account Fund, the gas tax, was used for the SB1 and for our ramp. So when Charlie Shooten did this project and sent it out to council, in I think a year and a half ago or so, that was on this list. So I just kind of wanted to show you, it all falls in. If you look at the top, it's showing where the dots are, where the ramps are. The red dots are where we are around the park right there. So that kind of shows the 17-18 project, 18-19 project, just the green dots, that's where we'll be going next. And the same thing with the 19-20. And like I said, that falls in line with that same list I showed at the beginning of the presentation. That's it. No questions? Thank you.
Comments? I would just like to say thank you to you and your crew for all the work doing this. I know this is an item, this accessible sidewalks has been brought up by a lot of people in town, myself included. I know it's something that we're going to probably speak about later this evening in the survey done on senior services, and one of the big items that Dave mentioned was accessible sidewalks, a lot of areas that need work, and I know we're doing what we can with the budget we have, and I just like to say thank you, good work and all that, keep it up.
Thank you.
Just one part of it. As we've been working, as far as the funding goes for all of this, there's a very stark reality. As a small city, most of these funds are allocated on a per capita basis, based on the number of people. And there's a lot of discussion regarding things. Eric showed you that we more than doubled the amount of money that we are putting towards fixing sidewalks. We have a very meager budget. I can imagine Mitch with the city of Davis and things looks at that and goes, we do that in like 30 seconds. But it's a reality for us that the funding that comes in to do all the projects, to fix the streets, to just Main Street. That money has been possible because of the gas taxes that we're getting. And here's the reality. If those gas taxes go away, so do all these projects. They just do. We run a pretty lean operation. Eric and his staff have done a pretty good job of being able to manage the repairs and the things that are going on. But it's been a struggle. Prior to last meeting on social media, there were people stirring the pot about sidewalks in town. And we're a city that's almost 150 years old. And there's a lot of sidewalks, and there are some of our infrastructure that's well over 100 years old. We have beautiful trees, tree-lined streets, and those trees don't do the sidewalks in a single pavement ever. And it really is tough. The alternative, and something that we've never really done. You read our city's municipal code, it says that the property owner is responsible for their sidewalk. We've never implemented that. I don't know hardly any cities that really do. And it really comes down to the funding on various things. I give Eric and his team a lot of credit. They're getting out there, figuring it out. Many cities don't do this. They contract it out. We can never contract it out. I can tell you, we probably get about one round for what Eric and his team do. We've got about $40,000 to put towards everything over a 2-year period. That $40,000, the intersection of Haven and Abbey Street, it's probably maybe 2 quarters. No, so a lot of credit to Eric and his team. We're looking forward to getting some of the other projects done, but it really is contingent on where a lot of things go with funding.
I just wanted to thank first just deep gratitude for all the work that's been done. And every time I see another corner done, I'm driving. I'm so proud. That's great work. But I read a figure, and Supervisor Seeler can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that over the next 10 years, Yolo County is slated to get about $96 million in gas tax money, if, of course, that is repealed and valid. And it's pretty close back to 96 million over 10 years. So we would be losing that in Yolo County, and we'd be losing those projects. So I just wanted to point it out that it's, maybe we don't get the same share as West Ave or Davis, but we make everything we have go farther, because that's what kind of community we are. And we're committed to making things better, and we do a great job, and really proud of the work you do. Thanks.
Well, thank you. Just real quick, this here is actually a list on sidewalks that we've done since 2016. So 17, 18, there's 479 man hours, 33 hours of concrete, and in 2016, 582. So 1,061 man hours and 93 yards of concrete in 2.5-3 year period. That number is the 67 different locations. It's actually 52 because I dropped out the 2015, but I just forgot to change that middle one. But so things are getting, I just kind of want to show the council we're getting to them. Yeah, it is the property owner's responsibility or liability, but we kind of prioritize where it's kind of the worst case scenario. Obviously, we're always going to work around schools and stuff like that, but I just kind of want to show you guys that we have been hammering away at these, and we'll keep doing it. Is that it? There we go.
Thank you. Okay, we will now move on to discussion items. First one we have is a public hearing for proposed City City Winners 2003 Development Impact Fees and Excess Study, which we are going to continue that to the November 6th meeting. So after that, the second item, we have Sheila Allen with a report on senior services.
John Bick. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Council authorized the city to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with Yolo County. And as a result of that intergovernmental agreement, Sheila Allen has been working on behalf of the city, piloting the actual provision of some senior services and also identifying through a lot of community outreach senior services that are desired. So tonight is her opportunity to make a report to the council. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Sheila.
Thank you, Dan.
I am the real Sheila Allen. Yellow Jacket. Thank you very much to Dan. It's been a pleasure to work with him and city manager, and I appreciate the opportunity to work with the city council and actually all of Winters. What a lovely community you have. I have really enjoyed the last 15 months over here, and I'll be coming by more often. I would like to second the motion of the city planner that was saying how lovely it is to walk down your street. I bring my family down here also, and it's really a pleasure to come to your community. So I'll be back. So I wanted to first start out with a thanks to our task force. I've been working with a group of local older adults and older adult advocates that have helped to us to look at the data and to bounce off some ideas with them and to help with this report. So those being City Council Member Jesse Lord, you can wave from up there. We have some people in the audience. Valerie is still here. Valerie Whitworth. We have Wally Pierce is here. He wants to smile and wave. We carefully pulled together. I carefully pulled together this group to make sure that we have representation of different parts of the community. So we had 2 people from the Winter Senior Foundation. And then I also worked carefully with Karen May when she became the chair, with representative of the Hispanic Advisory Committee and with the Winter Senior Citizen Club. So wanted to make sure we had input from all different people throughout the community. Also, I've enjoyed having an opportunity to work with Julie Bates, who's an associate state director with AARP, and she will not smile away where she is. And just so that you know, Supervisor Don Saylor has an interest in this area. So every time I would see him, he'd be like, what's going on? So I'd have to give him an update on what's going on in Winter. So he's part of the club also. So I want to just run through what we and I did, and then some of the findings and the recommendations finally. I don't have a PowerPoint, going all old school here. I thought of that on the way over here. I'm like, wow, I should have PowerPoint. I have stickies, for those of you who remember that. And then just me and my bright yellow jacket to tell you about what we did. So we had different ways of approaching trying to gather the data. I started 15 months ago talking to individuals. So what's called in the business key informants. Many of you are in this room. And so I have a list in the report of the 23 different individuals that I spoke with for interviews. And then I also did outreach to different organizations in the town that included general community and also one that specifically addressed older adults. So did a presentation to them and then received input back from them about what they saw as needs and priorities in the community. And from that initial look, we identified 2 major areas of highest concern. One was related to transportation issues, and 2 is the guy who just left. Can you imagine that we're still talking about safe streets and sidewalks? So that was a safety on the sidewalks and the streets was a high concern in those initial interviews. So I'm glad to see that there's a plan going forward of continually addressing those needs. I have in my report generally some other identified issues. I hope you get a chance to look at all those because there's some great ideas for the future. Next, using that as the basis, we developed a survey, both online and paper, to get a broader community input. So those findings, we had the participation of 137 surveys, so that's pretty good for the city of Winters. We're happy with that. 43% of them were Latino Hispanic background, and 83% were over the age of 50. So we felt pretty good about that representation, and their priority areas that were identified from that survey was for services. So we broke it into both the programs that would be needed and services. So the top 5 priority services were transportation, first is local, then regional, then in-home care and personal assistance. 4th is home visits for isolated seniors, and 5th is help knowing where to find services. And then the top priorities were for programs were exercise classes, a walking club, card games and activities, craft groups, and computer and smartphone use. Now, it's interesting when we would do these, when I do both the individual surveys and I'd be out talking to groups, and I'd say, you know, what do old seniors or older adults, what do they need? Almost everybody I talk to is like, well, you know, I don't need it. And I'm fine, and I'm not really a senior or older, including the couple that was over 80 years old. So, yeah, exactly, you're not really. So we had a second set of questions that said, what do you might not need it now, but what do your neighbors and family members and friends in the community, what do you think they need? So kind of take it out of the what do you need now? So that's the second section. And then also we said, well, you might need it right now, but what do you think in the future you might need? So then that's the difference between the first and the second set. We then took a look at the demographics of Winters, and I had a UC Davis demographer, a graduate student who took a little bit of time to look at the, let me try to get the data source correct, the American Community Survey. The advantage to this, since we are now in 2018, it's been 8 years since we've had the full-on, excuse me, assessment of the whole population. So this ACS does an annual estimate so that it gives a little bit more current information. So I'm not going to run through all the data, but for those data hounds, like John was super excited when he received this jumped right into it and said he wasn't paying attention anymore because he was looking at charts and graphs. So there's specific information regarding Winters, and then we thought it would be interesting to take a look at Winters compared to Yolo County as a whole and the other cities within Yolo County. And the one striking demographic difference I would like to point out to you is an interesting section of your demographic population are those persons between the ages of 50 and 64. That in Winters, that group is a little bit different than both everybody else in Winters and people within Yolo County on 4 different areas. And this is should be something of note since we are planning for older adult services now, but also in the future, because if those people between the ages of 50 and 64 are lucky, they will get to be older and live in the community. So the 4 things that were interesting for this particular slice of the population is that it is the highest percentage of people in the community are in that slice of time, that they have the highest rate of poverty as a group, that they have the highest rate of unemployment, and they have the lowest access to health care. So that is interesting to think about because they're going to be going forward in time. Some of that, they will be lucky when they turn 65 and then they'll have access to Medicare. But there are a number of people, and this is nationwide, that have healthcare issues and don't have sufficient healthcare, and then are just waiting for that day they turn 65 so that they can actually have access to healthcare. You are very lucky in Winters because you have your local health clinic, the Winters the Winters Healthcare Foundation. So they do have access to primary care here, but it is maybe more difficult for some of that specialty care. Next, I wanted to tell you about specifically some of the work that the task force did is that they looked at 2 major issues that were identified. One is that hopefully there will be a senior center at some time in the near future in Winters. And so they wanted to look at other local senior centers to see what is working for them, what is not working, and what might work specifically in our community. So we did a series of visits. We got to ride the lovely short Winters bus to go around to the different communities. And here are the main things that we found from these site visits, is that there is a need for paid staff at the center and that it cannot be totally 100% volunteer driven. That was universally found in all the visits that we did. That we need to evaluate the ability to build up, to have it be in the future if we don't have the funds for it right now. And we understand that there's a certain footprint set aside, but that when in the planning portion, it might be a good idea to structure it so that in the future it could be a multi-story building. That there's a need for a commercial kitchen, and that's currently in the plan, but that is something that was a positive in the different ones that we visited. It's essential to have rental space because number one, there's an identified community need to have some place to gather together for the community. And also that's actually a way to bring funds in to help sustain the location. Next is that the task force members really liked a part of West Sacramento because it was intergenerational. It's not just a senior center, it is definitely a community center that has a preschool in it, and it has community theater, and it's a gathering place for everybody together. We do understand that there may be funding restrictions related to that, but it is a recommendation of the task force. Next is that they did find that most of the instructors for the classes in the senior centers were all volunteer. So that is a way to move forward with volunteer assistance. Next is for anyone who's ever built a home or anything, is that storage was very important. Everywhere you went, even some of the brand new ones, said that if we only would have thought of more storage, and then like Woodland had a whole wall of storage, and they said, still, we need more storage. So be thinking of storage. That you want to ensure that programs and services are what people want. So we have, I think, a very good start at what currently people need and want, but when you get to the point of actually opening a senior center, you would want to have a way to check in with the community to make sure at that point in time going forward that the programs and services are what they want, because then they'll be more likely to participate. Next is that it would be best to have staff at the center who are bilingual. This community has a lot of Spanish-speaking individuals, and that in order for it to be a friendly and welcoming location, it would be very helpful to have people there that speak both English and Spanish. And next, finally, the task force wanted to say that there's an urgency to get this done, and that the community and seniors in particular have been waiting some time to see a senior center being built. So I know that staff are actively working on it, and it's not a back burner issue at all. We're moving forward with it, but know that your community is behind you and making sure that that happens. So that's regarding senior centers. The second thing that the task force looked at was the big issue of transportation. No matter where you are, whenever you're talking about older adults, transportation always rises to the top as one of the most important needs. And so Winters is no different in that way. You do have some particular issues related to it because some services that individuals may need are not available in your community. So as I've already mentioned, that we look at transportation from the lens of both local within your community and then more regional to get out and get some of the things that you can't get here. So we, as a model that we were looking at as a possibility, the city of Woodland has a community care card that's been going for a very long time, 20 years, yeah, 27 years. And it's run by a board of directors, and it's all volunteer run. The city just houses the computer where people call in to schedule it, and it works quite well for them. It seems like perhaps we don't quite have that need or that volunteer base here in Winters, but it might be something as you grow a little bigger that might be something that you would want to look into some more. But the task force decided at this point in time not to try to go down that road. We also had presentations from YOLO Bus, and they came and talked to us both about the YOLO Bus line that runs through town 6 times a day, is that right? 6 times a day, and has a fixed route to places that you may want to go, or maybe you want to go somewhere else. It takes you a long time to get there. And secondly is that they also run YOLO Bus Special. So we have some information and some recommendations regarding those two pieces of it. Another interesting piece that we found was that currently YOLO Bus is working with Knights Landing, which is smaller than Winters, but it also a rural-ish town, because they were running, YOLO Bus was running a line through Knights Landing that almost no one rode on. It's very expensive to drive one of those really big buses way out there to try to get them into the places that they want to go. So they have a 1-year pilot for what they're calling micro transit going on right now. So one of the recommendations is to see how that went and see if perhaps that could be something that would work for Winters. Another interesting regional project that's going on for transportation right now is the VIA project in West Sacramento. So this is a collaboration between this funding from ARP and the city of West Sacramento. It's funds in for it. And it's a shared ride service with a van that you can dial up and ask for a ride, and they will do a route to come pick up you, and then maybe they'll get you, and then drop you off along the way. It's not free, but it's the city subsidizes the older adult part of it. So that could be something that might work here also. So you might want to have a chat with West Sacramento. There was a request by especially the healthcare providers to have a pull-out sheet for transportation, because that is a question they get all the time that they're working on their people. So that's included in the report, is about the different options for transportation. One other little transportation caveat is that YOLO bus special, so that's the ADA bus that you have to be certified as being disabled, will come door to door to pick you up as long as you're near enough their fixed route. So luckily anyone who lives in Winters, that works for them. A little bit in the countryside, but there are country parts that it doesn't cover. But they are not allowed to pick up outside of Yolo County. So if you live on the other side of the creek, you are up creek. You cannot use YOLO bus. YOLO bus will take you out of the county, so you can get to Sackville, you can get to Sacramento, but you have to start within the county. So Wally helped to connect us to the Faith in Action group over there in Solano County, and they have a similar door-to-door pickup van kind of thing. So that is an option for people on the other side of the creek. So that's helpful and in the report, and also in the resource guide. So the next thing I want to just briefly talk about is that there's been some discussion, and the city council and the city manager have received information on the age-friendly network of communities that AARP sponsors. So there are 8 different domains that can be looked at to assess your community. All that I would like to say about it tonight is that this report and the work that's been done over the last 15 months gets you way down the road of what needs to be done in the first 2 years of the assessment. So if you were to decide to move forward with that, you already have a lot of the information that you need right here. So you might want to think about that. Next, I did, just for your information, using all of the data and all the different data sources over the past 15 months, I did a quick SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So I'm not going to read through those, but they are listed in there. Part of what was requested in the community was to have a bilingual, a winter-specific senior resource guide, and so that has been done. I had an intern that was working with me who did it, and then we sent it out in the community. The task force took a look at it. I already have another update that, oh, she left that from someone, so I've given this to the city in both PDF and in Word, so it can be updated as you find new things for it, and it can be copied and sent out to the community. You probably would want to put it on your city website so then people can look at it. I know that Winters Healthcare Foundation is very excited. They already have it, and they've already made some copies and have been handing it out. We made copies and handed it out at the Carnitas Festival, which was a lot of fun, although I didn't get any carnitas. Someday I will. But there was a lot of interest in that. We handed out lots of them at that time. So finally, and then there's also all the data demographics are in there. So I'm going to now just go through the recommendations, and then I'm happy to hear your questions or comments. So the recommendations for future actions. So this is from me, not from the task force or other people. So just using all the information and the work over the last year, is that the first recommendation is that the city of Winters could benefit from starting a commission on aging. So other cities in the county have a commission on aging. You have like Hispanic Advisory, you have, what's that other one that they're talking about, Dan? Another advisory team.
Well, there's an affordable housing.
Yeah, so you have some opportunities for citizens to be involved and to give you some input. So this might be a good time for you to start a commission on aging. They could pick this up and start moving it forward, and you can decide how you would like to appoint them. The other positive part about having a commission on aging is that there's a county-wide commission on aging that draws a representative from each of the city ones. So then Winters would have a voice at that county level. So that would be great. Second is that the community is expecting and anxious to see the senior center move forward. So they are ready for that to happen. And that a part B of that is that the task force shows the work that we did is that successful senior centers have a paid coordinator staff to ensure that the building is open, that it's safe, and that programming is scheduled. So you don't need a lot of support with it, but likely would need some support. And that for full inclusion, that's highly recommended that the person that works there is bilingual. Third recommendation, that there are many nonprofits and county organizations that can provide many of the services and educational opportunities that would be needed or desired by people in Winters. So all you have to do is ask and open the door and have a location for them. I know that Dan's been working on looking for a location for SeniorLink, which is a countywide information and assistance organization that helps to connect people to services. And they double as legal services, so free legal services for older adults. So there's a long list of different services that would be happy to come out here to you if you just ask, or if they ask, you say, yeah, come on over and here's where you can go. Fourth is that additional transportation options need to be explored to address this top need. So following up on, as I've already mentioned, YOLA Bus and the possibility of microtransit, looking at the West Sacramento VIO program, or additional discussions that have happened in the county. You're very lucky to have 2 ADA compliant minibuses that are already owned by the city. So you have a resource that's right there. And we had a pilot project where we were having a volunteer driver offering to take people to, first it was Vacaville and then to Dixon Walmart. And it sounds like that's what the people said when I went out and did town meetings. They said, wait, they don't talk like that. We would really like to get over to, so then you can do all your shopping in one location. Well, we tried it, we advertised it, I put it in the paper, I put it flyers, and it has not been highly utilized. So that might not be the exact answer, but I think that if we could, as you as a community, since as a transportation need, to find a way to use those buses, that would be awesome. Fifth is that safe roads and sidewalks are our second high priority, and we have already talked about the sidewalks, so thank you for working on fixing that. There is in particular a concern and a desire to have a safe and direct walking passage across Grant Avenue to the grocery store, the one bigger grocery store in town. So in particular, because where the senior housing is currently and where senior housing will be in the future, that they would like to be able to walk to the grocery store, but you really can't get safely across there. It was also pointed out that the bus stop is on the other side of the street, so if you wanted to take the bus, you have to get across to the other side, and that there's no sidewalk on the other side of the road. So I know that's a difficulty because that's a state highway right there, but I think that I know an assembly member that might be interested in this, and she has said that she'd be happy to bring Caltrans here if that's an interest of the city to be able to address that particular need. And then finally, that the city of Winters may benefit from ongoing older adult planning process, since we've already, it would be sad that if this report were then to go on the shelf and nothing would happen with it. So if there could be a way to have it move forward, and one way might be to participate in the age-friendly network of communities, because the groundwork has already been laid. So that is my report. Clapping in Davis, so I'm always surprised. Because sometimes they boo, so you have to. So questions or comments from the council members?
Seemed like a very thorough report, I think.
Yeah.
I have a vested interest in not having this just sit on the shelf either, and I just wanted to ask you and maybe you from the audience if you, what would you like to see done with this? What do you think next steps are? What would you like to see happen with all this work that's been compiled over how long?
15 months.
15 months. And something I'm interested in. But
well, on page 26, there's 6 recommendations on page 26. So that's but if you had to prioritize them, I think the first step could be the creation of an aging commission, because then you would have a mechanism for people to be involved to help move things forward. Then they could take this piece.
I would echo that. There's a lot of good information in this. I know you did a lot of work on that, pulling all this together, so thank you for reaching out to everybody in the community. I mean, I got one of your resource directories at the Carnitas Festival, and as soon as I had it, someone said, "Oh, can I have that?" So I pass it on. And so that's going to be a good resource in itself right there, just having that information all together in one publication. So I'm sure there are a number of people in the audience that would like to give us their feedback on this. Anybody out there want to speak to it? Yes, okay, one at a time. Please come forward, give us your name.
Hi, my name is Mary Ann Boyer. I live on the library. I just have to say, this sounds exciting. This is just so what we need. And I can only see us going forward with it because a great percentage of our group here in Winters are elderly. They do need our attention. I get as involved as I possibly can. So I totally support it. I think we should go all the way.
Thank you. Next.
I didn't hear, I didn't hear you
Can you come
mention
forward?
anything about housing. Is that out of your realm or did I miss it?
Housing.
Oh, shit.
Affordable housing. I've been on the list for 9 months and I'm still waiting. Luckily, I am in a situation where I'm house sitting right now. But they're getting it ready to sell. And if I don't get an apartment before then, I'll be kind of out of luck.
Can we
So
talk about that again? Because it didn't, go ahead.
Sure. We do expect to move forward and break ground on the new senior apartments in the spring of next year. That is about I think they anticipate about a 14-month build. So it's still a year and a half away. But the other thing that I would encourage you to do, and I'll maybe give you my card, is if I were in your position, I would put my name on the interest list of all of the affordable multifamily complexes here in town, because you never know which one's going to open up first. And while I realize that many seniors would prefer to live in a senior-only community, having safe, decent, affordable housing kind of trumps all, at least in the interim, until we can get the new apartment complex online. So again, I would encourage you to kind of cast a few casts out there and get your name on the interest list at the other properties within town, because that might be that interim living arrangement that you need to get us to the new complex.
Is there some regulation, Dan, that says that if you're homeless, you go to the top of the list on senior housing?
Not to my knowledge.
They have it in Illinois. That's why I was wondering if California.
I'll look into it, but not to my knowledge, Karen, but I'll certainly look at it with those that have more knowledge than I do.
Yeah.
I'm visiting your fair city as she, oh, here.
Here you go. Thank you.
Excuse me. I'm Julie Bates with AARP, and I've had the good fortune of working with Sheila for a lot of years on a lot of different things, and I've had the opportunity to talk to Mr. Don Levy as well. And my ears perked up when I heard that you are going to be looking at your general plan and making some possible revisions to your general plan. And if this is something that you're interested in doing, the work that you had Sheila do and the community do really set the groundwork for the network of age-friendly communities that folds right into your general plan. And so if you're looking at affordable housing and you're looking at transportation and you're looking about sidewalks and you're looking about public participation in outdoor spaces, that's all part of the 8 domains of livability. So it seems like you may be on the precipice of doing the work already. And so there are resources, there is information, if that's something that you should decide to do. And this report that Sheila has done has set the groundwork for the 2-year planning process. You're almost done with it. If you chose to implement, this process, there's additional things that you would want to do to get feedback from the greater community. But you've done such wonderful work, already under your leadership and with Sheila's stewardship and the stewardship of your community. You're more than halfway there. So if you ever want information, and you've got it all already, but we're happy to send you more and answer any questions that you might have. I'm here as a resource.
And I would absolutely say that that would be a way to go, and that the commission might already be partially formed, because Sheila asked all of us who were on the committee whether we wanted to go forward with the action, and I think that it was a unanimous yes. So if you want a group that's ready to go, we're here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I echo that premise, that the task force is in place, so it's not a matter of going out and trying to find folks. We're already here. So I think the commission's the way to go, because I hate to see this report get stuck on a shelf someplace. There's just too much work in it. And that's my fear. That's some of the things I talked to Sheila about. You spend a lot of money, you put this thing together, and you've got no way to move it forward. The task force can do that. And as Valerie said, we're willing to do it.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to comment on this? I think there's a lot of good feedback as far as taking action on forming a commission. It's not something that we can do tonight. We'll put that on a future agenda, and we can have some discussion on it and look into that. It would be a good step, I think. It's very important. We have a lot of information here. So how do we implement it? We got to figure that out. And we promise you, there is a senior center coming. It's a long time coming, I know.
Check is in the mail.
Yes, it will happen, right, Dan?
You're gonna retire?
Yes, it will.
Yes, before I retire.
Before you
And
retire.
I-
Want to speak that into the
The resource guides will be on the city website before this week is over.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up, I think we're going to rearrange the discussion item we have, which is number 4, the Valley Clean Energy Alliance.
Yes, yes, sure,
Sheila
gathered all the information from there.
Maybe we'll give her like 30 seconds.
Oh,
okay.
Right, no, I'm going to Mayor and Council. So in the past month, there's been a lot of busy discussion that has brought us to this meeting. So at the September 13th meeting with Valley Clean Energy Alliance, they adopted a resolution which essentially tasked their staff to basically contact and ask the cities of Winters and West Sacramento about interest in possibly becoming a member of Valley Clean Energy. Valley Clean Energy was formed. It really has 3 members right now: the county and both the cities of Davis and Woodland. They were formed in 2016, and basically they're a community choice aggregation for purchasing power. In this case, they're purchasing green power in support of a number of goals. But also, by following the path of aggregation, coming together, they're able to go out and negotiate rates that basically, if you think about how you get your power, there are really 2 ways. One is it's delivered to your house, and the second is actually buying the electricity. The electricity portion is purchased through negotiated contracts that, in the case of PG&E, they go out and negotiate those. So in the past month, staff was contacted by the team from Valley Clean Energy about the idea of Winters' interest in joining the JPA here in Yolo County. And Mitch Sears is here and Supervisor Don Saylor is also here, and I think they'll give you basically a general overview. There are a couple of benefits that really, I think, need to be vetted out a little bit as far as there's an overall analysis that is done, which gives you, in so many ways, the various benefits. But under Valley Clean Energy's rate, there's a discount that they are providing to their customers. In the sense that if you join, everybody as basically the governing body for the city, if the council decides to go in, everybody would be in, everybody within the city. They ought, the way that you get out, or if everybody's in, but if you want out, you have to opt out. So that's the way that it works for all the customers. For the city, they've asked for a $25,000 fee that would come in. In that case, that would allow them to do the overall analysis and crunch all the numbers as part of the due diligence process. So, why don't I just kind of turn it over to Mitch or to Supervisor Saylor to maybe talk a little bit. Today I've chatted with them about the idea of maybe giving a general overview for this. There's kind of a rush, a sense of a rush on this, based on the idea that in order to, the way that the Public Utilities Commission requires it, it's not like you just join. You have to basically become a member of the JPA, and it actually takes an entire year. So if the city was to think about joining, it's not like we would join in 2019. You would actually join in 2020, or it goes on a one-year cycle of things. So let me turn it over to the BCE team to maybe talk about it a little bit.
Thanks, John. As usual, you've done a really nice job of describing the framework that we're going to talk about. So you know me as a county supervisor representing this area. One of the things that we all do is serve on a number of other boards and commissions and committees and so on. So one of the ones that Supervisor Chamberlain and I serve on is the Valley Clean Energy Association board. So I'm here tonight representing that board. Chair Frericks and Vice Chair Stoller are both doing the same thing they're doing right now. They're in their city council meetings. So I'm the past chair, so they said, would you come and talk to the folks? And so I'm delighted to have that chance. We did form in 2016, but this has been under works for many, many more years than that. The creation of a community choice energy program was the major action item in Yolo County's climate action plan that was adopted, I think, in 2012. So we've been thinking about it, talking about it, working on it in a variety of formats and ways for several years. When we decided to join, initially it was the city of Davis and Yolo County. But as we proceeded, we created this structure, and the structure was scalable, so that we had 2 members of the board from Yolo County, 2 members from the city of Davis. Woodland decided that they were interested, and we went through the analysis with them, and they had their community group and came back with a recommendation to their council that they wanted to proceed. So 2 members of the Woodland City Council are now round out that board. So it's Frericks and Dan Carson now from the city of Davis, Angel Barajas, and Tom Stoller from the city of Woodland. So that's our 6-member board. We also have an advisory committee, and that I think there are 3 from each jurisdiction. And one of those members is right here tonight. That's Dave Springer who lives here in Winters. So we're delighted to have the expertise and the brain power that comes with the people of Yolo County in all of our jurisdictions stepping forward. We currently have 55,000 customers in the city of Woodland, the city of Davis, and the unincorporated areas of Yolo County. We thought that we needed to plan for some opt-outs. So we just estimated in our our calculations for how this is all going to, how the bottom line is going to work, that we could make it work if we had about 10%, up to 10% opt-out. We had less, a little bit less than 5% of the customers who had the opportunity to opt out, who actually taken that, made that choice. There are some customers that are really looking at their bills and again, kind of, there's, for the first time, there's a line item on their bill that says Valley Clean Energy for electrical supply. They didn't see that line before because that cost was just buried into other lump sums on their bills. They didn't know it was there. So we've had some questions that we need to work out with people. I just wanted to say that the essential purpose of this program is a lower cost, at least competitive costs. We currently, the rates for the first year are 2.5% less than PG&E for each of the rate categories. We launched in June. Mitch will give you all the rest of the story of details, but we launched in June. The rates are 2.5% less. That figures into the competitive cost. We also wanted to have green energy, and we're providing, I think it's 42% of our energy portfolio, something in that ballpark, where PG&E is 27 to 30% in that area. So we're already giving on the base level a greener energy, and people can take a second option and come up and have the 100% green energy if they want to. That costs them just a little bit more. But we also have a feature that I know Mitch is going to talk about this, but I want to make sure that I say this out loud to you all, and that's that. See how you're acting tonight? You're in public. Everything you do, it has to be on the agenda. You allow people to have an opportunity to comment in public. Your friends and neighbors are watching everything, every move you make. They're watching your eyes roll or not, body language. And you're doing all this in public. It's transparent. It's accountable. That's the same situation we have with Valley Clean Energy. That's not the way that other utilities are operating when rates are set in private, when there are closed session discussions, make major decisions. That's one of the features and one of the values. This is not easy. It is an ongoing public policy dialogue about how all this works. We think that the estimates are that about 50% of all of the electricity users in California are moving into a community choice aggregation program. And we are the only Central Valley community choice energy program. That's a significant issue because we're the only ones that are not on the coast, not in kind of high income neighborhoods in California. We are the people's energy choice. So with that, I'd like to introduce the interim general manager, Mitch Searson.
Thank you, John. Mayor, council members, I've got a slide deck that answers a lot of the questions. As you can imagine, we go out and we talk to a lot of community groups. Don and I have tag teamed on, I don't know, at least 5 or 6 of these types of presentations. I don't plan on going through all of the slides. I wanted to make sure that they had them as a resource. But in essence, as John pointed out, the board of directors at their last meeting took an action to set up a system to accept new participants in the Joint Powers Agency, so sort of set out guidelines, and took the action to formally invite the City of Winters and the City of West Sacramento to join the Joint Powers Agency. As Tom mentioned, the Joint Powers Agency document itself anticipated that possibly Winters, possibly West Sacramento may come on at some point in the future. And as Don pointed out, right now the structure is that there'll be 2 members from each of the jurisdictions who join. Once we hit 5, a total of 5 jurisdictions, that number ramps back down to 1 per jurisdiction. So the idea was that we were setting up a program that was Yolo County based initially, and that anticipated that each of the 5 public jurisdictions in Yolo County could potentially be part of this program going forward. Now, there was some intentional work in picking out the name too. We didn't name it Yolo County Clean Energy, as many of the programs have. We named it Valley Clean Energy, recognizing that this program might have the opportunity to serve other parts of the valley as well. So with that, I'll go through a couple of the slides fairly quickly, and we can stop for questions at any time, but I don't want to take up a whole lot of time. So Supervisor Saylor covered this, Valley Clean Energy, local community-based, not-for-profit energy company formed by local jurisdictions. This is set up under state statute that was passed in 2002. Currently, there's a slide, currently there's close to 20 programs that have been established in the state of California, serving right now about 2.5 million customer accounts. How it basically works, as John pointed out, is that Valley Clean Energy, in this case on the left-hand side of the screen, we source the energy. We're not doubling up on what PG&E is doing, we're replacing what they do. So one of the basic questions we get is, isn't this just sort of duplicating? Well, under this type of a program, how the state envisioned it and how we've set it up is that we're replacing PG&E in the procurement of energy, the generation portion of your bill. The transmission and distribution part of it, in the middle part of the slide, stays with the utility. The billing also stays there. So basically, we're utilizing that infrastructure to ship the power that we go out on the wholesale energy market and buy. On the customer side of things don't change. I've got one slide in here that looks at what a sample bill is, but basically you don't have to do anything in order to begin participating in this program. It is an opt-out program, again, under state statute. All these programs operate under the same set of rules. So we do have a certain amount of opt-outs. We can talk about that if you have questions. But basically, there's the objective of all these programs is to deliver value back to the communities that they serve. In essence, our customers, our residents, our businesses, and communities, they're our shareholders, as opposed to investor-owned utilities like PG&E, Southern California Edison, Michigan Gas and Electric. They are actually, they have shareholders and they're paying out dividends to their own shareholders. So that's one of the differences. So this is, just real quickly, this shows, this is a little bit dated, but there it shows the areas of the state, a little bit small, but areas of the state that are either in operation or beginning to launch, which is the green. Yolo County is included in that, even though so again, this is a little bit dated, so we're actually established and serving customers. And you can see that there are a number of different counties that are also considering this around the state. And again, the reason why local governments are jumping into this is that there's value that these programs bring to the communities. They can execute around energy efficiency, around climate action plans, around local investment and job creation. That simply those dollars, at this point in most cases, leave the communities in ways that we think that might be better purposed through one of these programs. So we've already talked a little bit about this, a brief history of Valley Clean Energy. As Supervisor Saylor pointed out, the City of Woodland actually joined. So if the City of Winters decided to join, you'd be the second community to actually join the program, though you'd be post-launch, so it's a little bit different. The benefits, we've already touched on these a little bit. Competitive rates, local control. So rate setting happens in a room like this, either in Davis or in Woodland. Right now, because those are the three jurisdictions that are served, we actually hold our meetings in the Woodland City Council chambers and in Davis City Council chambers. They alternate month to month. So this Thursday actually will be in Davis, for those interested. So local control is a key component of this. Sustainability, both in terms of lower greenhouse gas emissions in the energy, but also from a financial standpoint. We are designing a program to be financially sustainable going forward over time. Customer choice, again, the ability to opt out, but even within the program, the ability to opt out to 100% renewable energy. And we talked about the reinvestment in the community as well. So the next set of slides, these are the two energy choices. The standard option, 42% renewable, competitive rates. We don't like to talk about, we talk less about the exact amount of what the rates are going to be because we're in a regulatory atmosphere that does impact those. Some of you may be aware that the CPUC, Public Utilities Commission, just took action last week. It's going to affect the bottom line of many of these CCA programs. Right now, we're analyzing that. So we talk about being competitive. There's other values that come along, as I've talked about before, but rates are something that my board of directors has a very keen interest in because of the types of communities that we're serving. So again, ultra green, 100% renewable option. So these are a lot of the questions that we often get. Does BCE replace PG&E? The answer is partially. On the generation side, there is a replacement of PG&E services, but they maintain the pipes and lines and wires as they do right now, and they're paid to do that. The billing is the same way. So PG&E's business model is built on return on investment and not on the sale of energy. And so when they make investments in gas pipelines and power lines, and power plants, that's where they're guaranteed their 10% return by the Public Utilities Commission. They're not guaranteed that on the energy sales side of things. It's supposed to be a pass-through. So it does not affect PG&E. How does customer enrollment work? We've already talked a little bit about this. It's opt-out. You have the option to opt back out to PG&E. If you decide to return to Valley Clean Energy, you have to wait a year to do that. Again, that's part of the statute. We don't serve direct access customers. I don't know if there's any direct access customers here. So this is the sample bill, as Supervisor Saylor pointed out. The only real difference is in the orange box. The electric generation charges are now broken out for the first time. So we're getting a lot of calls. People are saying, "Hey, you're charging me more for this service." In fact, what ends up happening is you're just seeing the energy generation charges for the first time on your bill called out on the front page. And in fact, in this particular case, you'd be 2.5% less than what you would have otherwise paid PG&E on the generation portion of the bill. The net is roughly 1.5% for your entire bill because we're not getting a discount on transmission distribution charges. Those stay the same. So this is just a, yes.
It's transmission and distribution issue.
Yes.
You basically have no control over it.
That's correct.
So PG&E could say, well, we're not replacing those lines, or we're not going to underground for you. Just as
hypothetically, I suppose that is possible. We've not heard, so we're not the first ones out of the gate on this. As the map pointed out, there's a number of programs that are already in place. We've heard zero reports of any kind of moving down the list because you're a CCA community or a CCA customer. We had this issue raised by members of the Farm Bureau when we were starting the program as well. Everybody still pays the transmission and distribution charges. And PG&E, their profit center is on that side of the bill. If they started prioritizing customers based on that and were found that was the case, they would be jeopardizing their entire business model by doing that. There's strong incentive for PG&E and other investor-owned utilities not to play around with prioritizing based on whether or not you're a CCA customer or a CCA community. And if we have 95% of the customers in Yolo County, they'd be potentially upsetting 95% of their customer base. So we feel pretty confident that that's not going to occur, and nor have we heard any instances of that occurring.
Public Utilities Commission would be the real way.
Yeah, and the Public Utilities Commission would be the backstop on that issue. That's where community choice aggregation programs such as ours, or the statewide CalCCA, which is the association of all these groups, would bring a complaint to the Public Utilities Commission if any evidence emerged that was taking place. So theoretically, yes, I suppose, but practically speaking, not very likely at all. SMUD is involved, and basically we've contracted with SMUD because they're good at what they do. They operate under a services contract negotiated by Valley Clean Energy, signed by our board of directors. They bring a lot of expertise to the table, and they were competitive in their bid for our services. So it's good mission alignment. So it seems to make sense, and so far so good. Solar customers will be enrolled. We believe that will take place beginning in 2019. The board just adopted a policy around that. They will be phased in over the course of 2019, depending on which month they have their true-up cycle on. There'll be a small incentive to participate in Valley Clean Energy. We'll pay 1 cent per kilowatt hour more than PG&E for any excess generation that they provide. And again, this is one of the benefits of local rate setting. This is a decision that was made by the board as an example of what local control really means. The timeline, so this is the last real slide, the timeline of the process for new communities. John, again, already pointed this out. The Public Utilities Commission put a rule in place earlier this year. Before they put that rule in place, communities could join at any time it made sense for the JPA and communities to do that. They put in place a rule that restricted that because so many programs were starting up. There's some rationale to it because there's something called resource adequacy to make sure that there's enough power on the grid at the time that it's needed. But that restricts new communities from either forming or joining existing programs. For example, I've been up to Butte County, talked to Butte County and City of Chico. They're talking about forming their own program. They're subject to the same kind of timeline. And the reason why there was a little bit of a kind of a rush to get this onto your agenda is to give your city council an option, if you so chose, to sort of expedite the process. We would need to update our implementation plan for December 31st of this year, but then have your residents and businesses served on January 1st of 2020. It's a very tight timeline, recognizing that there's a lot of things that are up in the air. There's likely a good need to talk with your community, obviously have a dialogue here at the city council level and decide if this is the right fit for your council. So we're not trying to sort of rush the process. We think that there's some value in actually taking a more measured approach. And then if it did make sense for the city of Winters to join, having 2019 kind of have that dialogue, do the studies that John talked about, figure out exactly where the numbers land, and then have our implementation plan updated by December 31st of 2019, which would then set up a January 1 of 2021 start date for Winters, for West Sacramento, for other communities, potentially after that dialogue with the numbers. And the one thing that is sort of a critical step in all this too is that the city of Winters would need to authorize PG&E to release the customer data so that we could take that, then plug it into our financial pro forma that SMUD has created for us to run the numbers to see whether it's financially beneficial for Winters residents and businesses as well as our existing customers. So to sort of balance this. So there's a number of steps, but we wanted to come and talk tonight, provide the information. If there's a burning desire to go forward, we stand ready to sort of answer that need, but we appreciate sort of doing your due diligence and taking the measured approach as well. With that, I'll end my comments and certainly taking questions.
Questions from council? All right. There's a few people in the audience that have requested to speak on this item. Nothing pressing on. If there's comments, we'll come back.
Did we all get a letter from Denise and Al?
Yes, thank you for reminding me that. We received an email late today that's from a couple residents here in town, Al Viacio and Denise Trump, in support of this. Have that on the record tonight. We have a couple people in the audience who requested to speak on this. We have Bonnie Dixon.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Dixon. I just wanted to say that I strongly support joining Valley Clean Energy. I'm excitedly awaiting the day when I'll be able to buy my electricity and power from them. I think it's great that it's affordable and clean, and it's run by our local elected officials like Don. And so I think it would be a great thing to do. It's especially valuable for me because I'm a renter of an apartment, and I've always cared a lot about trying to be part of the solution to climate change. But when you don't own the building that you live in, there's not much you can do because you can't put solar panels on your roof or try to do retrofits for energy efficiency. But as a renter, this would be something that I can do to buy clean power. So I wouldn't have that frustration anymore, not being able to be part of the solution to climate change. So I think it would be great.
Thank you. Kate Lavish, would you like to speak, please?
Kate Lavish, 400 Morgan Street, number 21. And it'd be difficult for me to overstate how excited I am about the opportunity that Winters has to join Valley Clean Energy. I'm in very definite enthusiastic support of this opportunity. I've spoken with Supervisor Don Saylor and Lucas Frerichs as two board members of this and asked a number of different questions, and I've been really pleased with the answers I've gotten. Some of the opportunities that Valley Clean Energy presents that I think dovetail really well with Winters' values include transparency, as both of our speakers mentioned, the opportunity to take steps to address climate change issues and to purchase energy from green sources, and that it also allows for the ability for individuals and businesses to make their own choice, and that opportunity for individual choice I think is also really important for Winters. Because of different decisions that the California PUC has made both last week and earlier this year, my sense, and also what Mitch was speaking to earlier just now, my sense is the time is of the essence and that it's not something that we can wait overly long to decide. So with that, I'll just leave you with my enthusiastic support of this opportunity to join Valley Clean Energy.
Thank you, Kate. We also have a request from David Springer.
Dave Springer, 200 Drone Court, council persons and Mayor Bill. I've spoken to you about this before, and my opinion hasn't changed after having participated on the advisory committee. And on that committee, I've really come to appreciate how much effort has gone into pulling this together, and on the part of the JPA members and Mitch and everyone else on the advisory committee. And it's a 25K is a tremendous value considering how much money has been invested in this so far. I'd like to maybe jog your memory that we did a climate action plan for the city pro bono 4 years ago, I think. And at least I'm sure Harold remembers, but I'm not sure the rest of you were on the council at the time. But this would be a great component to fit into that if we ever get that adopted into the general plan. I've spent my entire career in energy efficiency and renewable energy, and what I really look forward to is helping to bring, once the resources are developed, helping to bring energy efficiency programs to the city and help coordinate that. And I'm anxious and willing to serve as a conduit with the board and with the advisory committee. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak to this? Seeing none? Carol?
You know how I feel.
I'll make a last comment.
Yes.
This will be just brief, but this is Dave mentioned that the $25,000 value is pretty good. That's for basically for the analysis that would need to take place. The other three jurisdictions each loaned the agency $500,000 apiece to get the thing started out. So that's the commitment that we all felt was necessary to move. And there has been tremendous amount of brain power and time and energy going into it. The reason that it's helpful for additional customers to come into the fold is that we can then have a better negotiating stance in the purchase of electricity, power, and we're able to have a greater economies of scale across the board. That's the reason we set it up so that it can scale. And our vision at the outset was that more jurisdictions would have an interest as it got going. And it's not limited to Yolo County jurisdictions, but Winters and West Sacramento are definitely the first choice of the board because of the family connection that we share with Yolo County. So with that, thank you for your time.
Has West Sacramento taken this up yet, or?
I mean, what's the story? They're considering it, but I'm not sure what the steps are.
Yeah, they're considering the sort of offer also. And it looks like they're on probably a spring 2021 path as well. Again, they have not had sort of council discussion or community dialogue yet.
Some individual council members have indicated a strong interest to see how that unfolds.
I have a question for you, Don. When you worked on the Yolo County Climate Action Plan and then became involved in this, what kind of elements dovetailed that you can just elaborate on?
Well, some of the issues for us were that this single action, because of the increase in greenhouse gas free electricity, it brings such a strong contribution to our climate action goals that if we had not done that, it accounts for about 50% of our total plan's actions. If we had not done this action, then we would need to have implemented a variety of other measures in the rural areas that would have been more painful. So that's one of the issues. It allows us, one of the things I'm really excited about, Councilmember Laura, is the possibility that in this particular setting, we can find better ways of providing electrical energy to agricultural, to large-scale ag users, and to some of the processing facilities and wineries, because they use a lot of electricity. We can find ways to tailor and to streamline and to sort of stabilize their electrical costs. It's a very big deal for their businesses. So those are some of the possibilities that we're looking at. We think that we've made the point to a lot of people that we speak to that having the local jurisdictions be able to integrate their electrical resource planning with their land use and transportation, their housing and jobs centers really makes a difference, because as you're looking at your future plans, if you can connect the dots, that if we proceed to develop a certain kind of a project, what is it going to do to our energy footprint? What is it going to do to our greenhouse gas footprint? And how can we utilize our role with Valley Clean Energy to bring things in planning spheres of the field?
So I have a question on the 2.5% discount from PG&E. Is that something that's been mentioned in here? Is that something that's guaranteed, or can that change?
That can change, and it will change, because each year there's an annual rate setting deliberation. It's pretty interesting, because we're trying to balance the board with staff and with the SMUD consulting team. And they're the backseat, by the way. The SMUD team is not, they're providing expertise and procurement support and the call-in center and those kinds of things. So we will consider the various elements of rates. And those elements will be how much power do we want to purchase from certain kinds of sources? How much do we want to devote to building an operating reserve for future contingencies? How much do we want to consider for investment in energy efficiencies or or incentivizing generation capacity in the local areas? So we have all these variables that we're looking at, and as we do that in public. And so next year the rates will be different, and it'll be a matter of acting on the goals that we've articulated tonight. with an awareness of changes in the economy and changes in the regulatory framework that will always be there. I will tell you that there is, many would say, well, it's always going to go up. Well, maybe not, but we are pretty sure that on the investor-owned utility side, that's pretty much the case. That answer. Is that?
Mhm. So, and the question on this, people who have solar on their rooftops already, how does this work with the net metering? I know I saw something on your website, how you're looking at some of those options again. What were the questions, something going on with that?
Yeah, when the original policy was put into place, there was a certain sort of structure for how we were going to be enrolling those customers. Based on some feedback we got from a local solar installer who's been working on this issue for quite some time, had us sort of take a step back because there were certain customers enrolled at a certain period of time in the year where they were producing more than what they were using at that stage. And as we enrolled them, depending on where they fell on the calendar, they may or may not have been sort of, in the first year, been sort of financially sort of negative. And so we went back and we reworked the sort of the timing of how the enrollment process works. And we think that we improved it. So that was the kind of take a step back, let's get it done. And another example of how we can do a customized program and have local control. We heard from our local constituents and we said, yeah, maybe there is a better way to do this. As opposed to, and through no fault of their own, but the investor-owned utilities, they have to do a one-size-fits-all. So somebody who lives up in Alturas has to have the same program as somebody who lives in Bakersfield for PG&E in that particular case. In our particular case, we're able to take a step back and, with regard to solar, using that as an example, and developing a program that there's always going to be some who are less benefited than others through this program, and there are a few that will still face that issue, but we're able to minimize that number substantially, and so we think we have a better program. And in those particular cases, we're talking with those customers and saying, you know what, it might be better for you to stay with PG&E. And that's something that you get with a local government, not-for-profit based program, because we're not trying to capture every single person. We want the best outcome for our customers. So not too much of a sales pitch, but that's really part of what this really boils down to.
So hypothetically, if more than 10% of the people opt out, then what happens?
We would still do fine. The model looked at a 10% opt-out rate. It would depend on a lot of different factors. Where the power market is at that point in time, what type of class of customer that's opting out, because some are, that's part of what's happening here too, is that the energy IQ or literacy of our decision makers, of our staff, that's one of the other sort of co-benefits of all this, is that there's a lot of learning that's going on. So depending on what customer classes opt out, so for example, if it's residential, that has a certain financial impact. If it's a commercial customer, small business that's opting out, majority, then that will have another impact. But what we would do is we would just simply rerun the numbers, and then our procurement plan from that point going forward would reflect that. So
I think one of the interesting things here, the customer choice piece, is that because people do have the option of opting out, we've got to make them happy. Yeah. And because we meet in public, if they're not happy, they're going to come tell us. So it's pretty interesting to have that situation. And the 5% or so, that's one of the lowest opt-out rates of any of the 20 that have come in. So we've got pretty broad acceptance in that.
And it is the first time that competition has really been introduced in a meaningful way in the electricity marketplace. So that's one of the other benefits, obviously, that comes with this program.
So I know there's been some others that I've done a little bit of research on, like the Marin Clean Energy Association, that they've had a little difficulty. They take on a lot of long-term debt. Is that something you guys will be looking at, taking on long-term debt?
So what you do with the power purchases is you can buy on the short-term market. Generally, the prices kind of bounce around as you would expect. Longer-term contracts, 10, 15, 20-year contracts, that's probably what is being mentioned in those articles. Each of these programs, like the investor-owned utilities, is looking at longer-term procurement because it stabilizes a situation. Sometimes you're on the right side of that, sometimes you're not on the right side of that. So it depends. That's where SMUD comes in really handy because they've been at this for 75, 80 years. They have a pretty good idea about where the energy market is going. What I will tell you, though, is that part of the experience has been putting out a solicitation for long-term renewable energy contracts. And what we're seeing is that the prices of those long-term solar energy projects based in California are getting to the point where they're competing with what we call brown power, so the system power. And it's been a remarkable reduction in prices. So we're looking at long-term contracts that actually stabilize and reduce rates as opposed to those rates. Now, you're locked in at that point, right? But that's where we have a program that SMUD helped us set up. It's based on their own risk assessment process. It's our enterprise risk management program. And so SMUD sits with us and other energy experts to advise on long-term procurement and the financial modeling, which we can bring and show you a little bit more detail on the numbers. But that information is factored in, and you hedge, right? I mean, it's not much different than a lot of other businesses in that regard.
Yes.
Winners has an economic development group, and they're looking at what kind of businesses can we bring to Winners in the future. And I see this option as something that would drive people to make a choice to Winners over another area. If a corporation has a value for renewable energy, they're going to want to be in an area that offers something like this Valley Clean Energy Choice. They're going to want to be able to advertise on their product that it's whether it's 42% green in their manufacturing or whether they go with the other option of 100%. I think that it would draw businesses here. I like the idea of stabilizing costs for business. I think that the businesses that we have here in town, they do a lot for the community, and for them to have the choice of having something that would stabilize costs, I think would be a benefit to those businesses. When I think about our school system, I think that they're a major user of energy, and I personally would rather save them some money and let them spend money on students as opposed to just energy bills. So I see that as a plus. I'm also a big supporter of local control, and maybe that's the League of California Cities. But I think local control is a lot of things. It's the city of Winners being able to offer to its citizens, whether they live in an apartment and they're not in a situation to put solar on their roof and then take it with them when they move. But if you offer a community choice aggregation, they can buy at that 42% or they can buy at that 100%. And we've through local control offered them choice for them to do something that they thoroughly believe in. And then I also see climate, we've been working on the climate action plan for some time, and I think it's on the radar of many people on council and people in the audience, and it would just take a big chunk. I think as it did for the Yolo County climate plan, it would take a big chunk of action for us to be able to have that in our city. So I see it as local control, benefit of affordability, a benefit for climate action, and a clean option. the city of Winters. So I'm very supportive of bringing this to the city of Winters.
Councilmember Anderson, any comments?
Theoretically, I can see it, this could come together in a number of ways. In terms of discussions going right. Fire issue, the other. Generational issues come into play. West Sacramento in particular, they have intergenerational housing that uses this type of clean energy. You know,
I'm not aware, so West Sacramento is not a part of this program yet. Woodland does have some affordable housing projects that are highly energy efficient and sourcing renewable energy on site. But this would be available, as one commenter pointed out, available to every customer if they so chose. I'm not aware of any intergenerational projects that would specifically take advantage of this, but it's available and we have 95% participation rate. So if I'm understanding your question correctly, it's available to everyone, and so therefore would be available to this type of a project that you've been talking about earlier tonight. Perhaps I'm not understanding the question.
I'm not sure I do, but are you referring to housing that's focused on the specific segment of the population?
yeah, I'm thinking of AARP, and that's one example in West Sacramento.
Great. So yeah, West Sacramento did do the step that the AARP representative talked about tonight. I guess that this, I don't know how this would detract in any way from that effort. It could be supported if you're planning for energy efficiency as a part of the whole community's living style. Both Woodland and Davis have active housing focused on elderly. For example, in Davis, there's the Atria Cogo Gardens. There's also the Eleanor Roosevelt low-income senior apartment complex, and many others, and they are all participating in this activity. I don't think it detracts in any way from the planning work. It could only support it. Yeah, but I'll have to think more about what you're about with.
Well, my comment, I am very supportive of this program. I'm not sure it's exactly the same. Well, I'm sure that it isn't exactly the same as the gas procurement program that I now subscribe to, but it's through Vista. And it sounds like it does basically the same thing. And I can't see why we wouldn't want to do it. But I know that the timeline and I'm not sure that the community would like us to jump into it instantly. But I think that the community will back it once they know what it's all about. So I can support this, certainly. Timeline is an issue right now. But we're 2021 or 2022. That sounds like a long ways off, but I guess that's, if we don't move now, that's the soonest that we could be in.
Yeah, it's basically a year delay. So by December 31st would allow you to start service January 1, 2020. So if you miss that December 31st in 2018, then it kicks you to January 1, 2021. So that's the basic timeline. And again, that was imposed by the public utilities.
Yeah, it's not your fault.
Well, not entirely.
Thank you.
I mean, I can see
some benefits to it, but I would also like to do some outreach to the community and have the city staff maybe looking at doing a deeper financial analysis of it. See if this is something that will benefit the people of Winters. Wait, it sounds like it will, but I want to make sure we don't rush into something like this. So as far as, are there any other comments?
You know, I'll tell you, Mitch and their team are excellent in all of this. You know, if the council wants to consider this, there's basically a due diligence process. If you look at what needs to be looked at, the one thing as Davis and Woodland and the county went into this, they all ponied up $500,000 to do their due diligence. And you know, is this thing going to work? How are we going to put it together? What's going to be the framework of things? And I agree with them. I think for the depth of what they're looking at, if they're looking at $25,000 to basically get a release of all of our customer data to go and crunch those numbers, that doesn't sound like an unreasonable amount. If you look at probably what the council needs to look at, is part of that is the fiscal, for them to go through and actually look at what this would all mean. Also, from the regulatory framework, very important, because essentially becoming a member of the JPA, you know, what are the obligations of joining that JPA, but also what's going on, because it's a very dynamic process right now, looking what's going on legislatively regarding all of these. I think the importance of the community dialogue, and I think the people that have gotten up and talked tonight have brought up benefits. Supervisor Saylor, I think, hit on one of the most important points, is the idea of transparency. The ability to show a very well thought out decision in how everything comes together is critical. I think upping everybody's energy IQ, because essentially you're becoming a part of a corporation that is understanding the fluctuations in everything. You know, if they were saying, oh yeah, guaranteed, you're going to get 2.5% lower. Oh, I mean, that, you know, how long can I sign up for that? Well, there's no guarantee on that, but understanding the fluctuations, because in so many ways, it's like looking at any type of investment. You don't look at just 1 year, you look at years down the road. And I think Councilmember Warren pointed out the idea of the choice on things is there, but I think being able to look at things on a little bit longer framework. And in so many ways, I don't think we'll necessarily be able to get all that done by next Wednesday when the agenda reports are due to the city clerk. But the idea of it sounds like the other invitee, which is West Sac, is going to look to move into this thing in 2019. And these folks really are at the tops of what they do. And I think the ability to get in, look at this from the various angles, and bring a pretty comprehensive report that the council can make the most well-educated decision, but also to inform the councils there. So, you know, the idea of us looking at this, I would absolutely recommend it. We're trying to figure out where we come up with the 25K, but I think inevitably the council having a very comprehensive look, that I think that we'll get 25,000 would be a bargain. And that way, comes into the council, the community is going to know it. We'll be able to, in a very definitive way, tell the community, you know, this is what we think that we're getting ourselves into. And, you know, then the council, I think, can make a good decision on it. So, from the staff perspective, the idea of looking at this, I don't think is outrageous at all. I think it's probably a pretty good decision.
I just have one other point. It's that the climate's not gonna wait for us. You know, climate change is happening and however long it takes us, it's not gonna stop changing.
I have what might be an answer to Harold's question.
Microphone, so everybody home can hear you.
All right, that's right, you already know my name. So, but I live in housing that's for seniors and people with disabilities, and the way that it works for energy bills with that is that individuals in your own apartment, you're your own energy rate payer. And so, but then the overall building for all the common areas, that's a business, and they take care of that separately, and that's a separate bill. And so, so that in that sort of situation, it's everybody within their own apartment residence makes their own decision and could opt in or opt out, and chooses how much energy you use, and in this case, where it would come from. So I don't know if that helps address it a little bit.
So, John, what are you looking for tonight? You're looking for us to provide direction, whether we want to look into this further?
If the council, is interested in this, what staff can do is get with the VCE staff, figure out a timetable on various things, when we'd have to come up with the money. Shelley's not here tonight, so. Coming up with a timeline on looking at this and probably establishing what the scope of everything would be and looking at it. So if the council wants to give me that direction, I'll take it. We'll get with their team and come up with a framework for the overall analysis.
Does it need a motion?
Here's consensus on that. I think that's fine.
Yeah, I think I would agree on it. I'd like you to look into it further and see if we come up with a physical analysis and figure out whether it's going to work or not. It's like,
Yes, please.
Yeah, probably I think one of the big things also would be just kind of figuring out how they do the community outreach portion. I think is very important for everyone. So put it on the list.
okay, put it on your list. Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, where are we?
Sorry, this is part of the community outreach, so these are.
I remember getting that.
Already got one.
You already got one.
So the next item on tonight's agenda is the strategic planning calendar.
Yes, Mayor and Council. So at our October 2nd meeting with the council, we talked a little bit about strategic planning. One of the things that the council asked to come back was maybe there are two directions. One was maybe to scale back being as ambitious and trying to bang this out before we got into January. Staff's put together a draft calendar of as we would go through the planning. These are all Wednesdays that we've picked. If the council wants to try and do it on a Thursday, completely open. The idea, most of these workshops would be in the evening. You know, I was like 5:30, but I get that other people are coming, have a longer commute to get to the meeting than I do. So if we were looking at more like 6-ish or something, for folks to be able to make it. So I've kind of brought you a calendar of the way that things would work out. I will tell you that from a community outreach standpoint, getting the folks who are the stakeholders and interested in these topics will be critically important. We want the participation of those stakeholders and people that are interested in these topics. As we look at the idea of setting those projects, those priorities as we're moving forward, it gets the community buy-in. And as the council is looking 15, 20 or more years into the future on things, that seems like a long time. But the last time we did it, it seemed like a long time. And we're already past when we came up with that first strategic plan. There's so much that the city and the council and our community can do. Tonight we heard Sheila get up and talk about senior services. I can tell you that there's another part of the age spectrum that's also going to want to talk about services for children and things like recreation. Have the priorities on things like parks or other community services. Where do we want to go with those things? One of the questions that came up was, gosh, we've talked about the whole general plan refresh thing. How does that all tie in also with sustainability? One of the things I've included in here is really the outline of what we were talking about as far as the general plan refresh. And the other day I had just an awesome meeting with Councilmember New, because he's been bringing this stuff up for a while. And I put together the calendar of when I'm going to bring things on each one of the general plan elements. And not only as I met with Councilmember New, but I talked with Kate Ladish yesterday. And Kate said something that just has resonated. And she said, well, gosh, people want to know what the future is. And if we were to look at what we want to accomplish through the refresh, it's the ability to take so many of the documents. When you look at our general plan, we've got millions of dollars of documents and things that we've put together. And it's pretty good. I'd say great, but then all the political dollars have these things great. But the ability to articulate a vision and show what we have. If you look at, for example, the community design aspects of it, something that we could do much better is articulate what the downtown, the densification of that, the form-based code, the downtown master plans that we have. What do those things really say? In the refresh, the idea is that we take so much of what we have and bring it forward. If you look at the number one thing that OPR is asking cities to do as far as their general plans, is to make them a better communication document. It's the idea of transparency of what's going on. So in here, I've included basically the outline. Then we'll update the general plan elements, make them current. You can do that. The idea of looking at a sustainability element. We hear a lot of people talking about climate and various aspects of things. The one thing about the general plan is that it's aligned through all of the sections of the general plan. The idea of looking at a sustainability element is that, are we going to come up with all sorts of different policies on things? Probably not. But the ability for us to, in one element, talk about all the things about connectivity, about smart growth, about bike and pedestrian orientation of the community, how that all comes together. And then finally, wrapping that all into the idea of a much more dynamic presentation of the general plan. That's what we're talking about as far as the refresh goes. Where are we going to get the money on this? We're going to SACOG. Realize that much of the planning that we've done over the past couple of years centers on a lot of the principles that are articulated in the blueprint for the Sacramento region. So tying those things together. But to start off with, I put together this strategic planning calendar. The ability for us to come together, hit the 5 major areas that make up our business model: infrastructure, public safety, planning and economic development, community facilities and the services that we provide. You wrap those things together and have the ability to talk about them, to say, what are our goals for the next number of years? And how are we going to prioritize those things? And so for the most part, that's what we're looking at as part of the whole process. Just being really straight with you, I don't care what days we do it on. I think it should be a very motivating process for folks. It'll be something to be excited with, because not only with the council, but our various committees, the planning commission, folks that I think that we will bring in on this stuff. It'll be a real shot in the arm for the community and the organization to say, all right, what do we want to do? Let's start planning things and start moving in a certain direction. So I'm with that. If you want to give me direction on the calendar, if these dates look good, we can go with them. If you want me to do another day, I can do that. But direction.
They all look great to me.
I just have a question. I brought up the fact that I thought 5:30 was too early. If I'm the only person that thinks it's too early, I don't think we should change anything. But how does that work for the council and other people?
For me, 5:30 is a bit early as well. I prefer starting from there at 6 o'clock. From Davis, a minute to read before I come back. Getting off work and driving over here. The other thing for me, just a personal thing, Wednesdays aren't the best night. Thursdays are better, but I can rearrange that. This is just like 5 days out of the calendar, so I can rearrange it. Other people think Wednesday's good or Thursday better.
Thursday's good also. I mean, I do have an event on Wednesday nights I'd like to participate in, but I would be willing to change that. Whatever works for everybody.
The other concern I would have is having ICF 2 of them in February on 6th and the 20th. Seems pretty close together.
That's because we're trying to shoot for the March date.
Is there a magic thing about the March 1st, 2nd?
Yeah, as we were kind of kicking around some of our calendars on the staff level. But no, there's nothing. If you want to move it out a little bit, put something okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Wednesdays work better for you?
Wednesdays are better for me, but I'm can change things too.
Yeah, so.
Wednesday's at 6.
Does that work for everybody? Make it work? Okay.
I'm gonna make it work.
Um,
And Wayne says yes.
yeah, wait, sorry. From South Carolina, he says. I know, Kate, you have requested to speak to the, talk about the general plan refresh. And it's probably a good time to give us your feedback on that.
All right. Do you need my email address again? Are we good? All right. Good to see you all again. Let's see, let me scroll through to the right place on this. And first of all, I'd just really like to thank City Manager John Dunleavy for meeting for about 2 hours yesterday. Really, really generous with your time and expertise, so I really appreciate that. And so with just kind of looking ahead with talking about the general plan and strategic planning, that just a couple quick points. One is that I just want to emphasize on something that I've talked with John about, just the importance of this being a robust process with a lot of public opportunity for public comment. And so I think it's really good to talk about this and in a way that that everybody who lives here can be involved and plug into it. I think there's a lot of expertise in town, as well as a lot of people who care very deeply about our community. And so I think this a robust general plan refresh is an opportunity to tap into that and for people to plug in about what the vision is of our town now and as we move forward. That one of the issues coming to in this that I'm sure is going to be addressed again and again is that the overall plan and then any of the subsections and master plans, I think it's really important that they reflect a current understanding of our current climate and how it's changing. There was just, and then how that's going to impact us here and what we can do to mitigate that and also what we can do to not contribute to the problem. There was, the state of California recently released, just in August, California's 4th climate change assessment. And it is an exhaustive study that also includes a lot of actionable information as well as tools that can be used by cities for when they're planning for this. And that I think that could be a tremendous resource for us with a number of the different sections of the general plan as we go forward. And so I emailed it to several different links, to Carol as well as to John. And so different ways that I think that's going to be really important that we consider climate with this are going to be how do we deal with extreme heat? That, for example, there's a very real possibility that by 2050, there will be over 40 days each year where temperatures exceed 106.6 degrees, and there won't be significant cooling at night. So how are we going to deal with this in terms of both our design, both of the houses, as well as planning so that we don't trap the heat, the urban heat island, as well as thinking about energy use and to take some of these different realities into consideration as we look ahead. Let's see, and certainly with stormwater uses as we go with kind of feast or famine with rainfall, so that it's either we get a lot of rainfall all at once and have really high peak discharges or it's drought. And so how do we deal with this? So those are just 2 examples. One of the topics, and it's something that John and I talked about yesterday, is as we go into a general plan refresh, I think one of the important things for staff and council to talk about is how does it address issues of annexation, and both within the sphere of influence as well as outside of the sphere of influence. And so I think that's just a good discussion to continue having. And let's see, I would also hope that council could ask staff, as we move through the process, to allow for public discussion about the pace of future development, including if there's a maximum size of development that can be approved all at once. And part of that is for acculturation of new people coming into Winters. Speaking as somebody who moved to Winters and has been, I think, at least acculturated into town. When you have people who move in more slowly, there's a chance that they're going to get folded into the culture of a town, so that they get to know Winters and they plug into Winters, rather than it just becoming kind of a bedroom community that's sort of near a highway. And so I think that's a really important piece, and that can be reflected through pace of development. But also because if we approve a large development at once, that will limit us to how well we can adapt, both to what we learn. It'll limit our ability to do adaptive management if we find that certain designs make certain issues worse. Or, on the other hand, if there's certain aspects of designs that we plan to improve things that actually really help, again, with climate. You know, are we doing something that really helps decrease urban heat island? Are we planning in a way that turns out works really well for dealing with fires coming into town? Or did we build things in a way that made it much worse? And so I think if we pace our development and pace the approval of it, that'll allow us to adapt as we move forward. So that's something that I think would be a really good discussion to have as we move through the process. And that again, I think that because the general plan is, amongst other things, a community's opportunity to state its vision of itself and its vision of where it's going forward into the future, I think this is a really important process. And I salute staff and council for entering into the process. And I look forward to the opportunity to participate as we move forward. I have a number of different links for the climate change assessment, so if anybody's interested, I'd be happy to send those. They include the overall, it's like the overall study, the summary brochure. Their brochure is 20 pages long, which gives you an idea of how exhaustive this thing is, as well as links to some of the different tools that can be applied by communities such as ours. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Bonnie, give us your feedback on this.
Hi, I'm still Bonnie Dixon. Should I say my address? I know it's weird.
We've got it here.
Okay. Yeah, I think that it's great that the city is going to refresh the general plan. So I really appreciate that the city is doing that. It's important, as Kate mentioned, to give people an opportunity for input and to have a plan that takes into account the current realities of the city's situation as that changes. I hope that it will be a thorough and detailed process because I think that there are a lot of things that have changed in recent years. Some specific things that I think are important to include in the planning process. Well, one thing that has changed a lot is our climate. As Kate has mentioned, we've got more heat and drought and greater fire risk than in the past, so that's going to require some adaptation. For example, I live on Russell Street, so we just had a fire right in the back of the street the past couple of days. So yeah, we need to plan for how to keep the community safe, how to adapt to our new climate, and also what we can do to mitigate climate change, because I do think that every community needs to be part of stopping climate change, so that certainly includes us. Another topic that I also think is important to include is there's also a great need for affordable housing in the region, so we should certainly do our part on that as well. I do support allowing more housing development, but at the same time, there's careful decisions that need to be made about land use choices, I really think that we should prevent sprawled development and instead prioritize infill development in the already developed area of the city. So I hope that that discussion will be included. And it was also mentioned earlier in the meeting in reference to seniors, the need for transportation, public transit options. I hope that will, I hope that we can make more public transit available for everyone, not just for seniors. So I think that that's important to include in the planning discussions as well. So those are some specific topics that I hope will be included. But yeah, I really appreciate that the city is doing this planning process, and I look forward to participating as well.
Thank you. So yeah, it looks like we'll move forward with the workshops that you have scheduled and the calendar you have for doing, presenting one of the general plan elements each month or so. What's that? Starting in maybe February. And as far as doing the refresh, that's kind of based on whether we get the $100,000 grant that we applied for.
Yeah, it all depends on, no pressure on Councilmember New. But,
I'm shaking the trees, you know.
Just for one point of clarification, one of the things about the refresh is the $100,000 seems like a lot of money. It is a lot of money, but it's not a whole lot of money when it comes to these types of things. One of the things that I talked with Kate about is the process is not going to include us stepping over into having to do environmental review. For the most part, it's are we going to look to change the existing general plan? The idea is that we're going to go through and basically take so much of the work that's already been done within the scope of the existing general plan elements and bring the document to be current. The idea of looking at land use or annexation or those types of things, that's when all of a sudden the siren goes off and the red lights start to flash on the environmental side. So we're going to kind of walk that tightrope that we don't dip over into the environmental side, because unfortunately that's when it becomes extremely expensive on things. But the idea of making the document and that part of the process a very iterative process with the community, absolutely. The ability for us to articulate some of the things that process will include. And this is where it gets scary. It probably doesn't fit with Kate's acculturation of everybody, but we'll probably see this more starting in 2019, going into 2020. We'll start looking at our housing element. And that's where we will be doing environmental and everything on that. But part of what the state is looking for in general plans is the idea of establishing standards and benchmarks and goals. And that involves the numbers. And that's when everybody's going to freak out. Because it as you look at, part of it, there were 15 bills that were adopted by the legislature in the past legislative session that dealt with housing. 11 of them were signed by Governor Brown. 11 of them. And is trying to speed up the production of housing, make housing more affordable and everything. I will share, run very contrary to some of the views that some people might have on things. I sent a note to Councilmember New because he sits on SACOG, and I said, usually when he comes back and he brings the regional housing needs allocation numbers to the council, he goes, well, I don't know how important this is. I think that's going to be the night that he's going to show up wearing a Kevlar vest and saying, well, yeah, I guess I'm your representative on SACOG here. And it'll be controversial. But the idea of making our general plan more vibrant, the things that we have, letting people know, and having them participate as part of all of that. Absolutely is going to be included in the process. And it's one of the reasons why we're bringing it forward. City's general plan has good stuff in it. It really does. Our master plans, I'm very proud of our staff who have worked on sewer, water master plans. Those things aren't necessarily at the top of everybody's list, but they are the most important things. What Carol works on is very important. So anyway, I'll take this. I appreciate the council's input tonight. We're going to put this thing together and we'll move forward.
Okay, and we have one more item on our agenda to discuss tonight, and that is the City of Winters app.
You have a question over here.
Yes.
I wanted to make a comment before we move
Sure,
on
yeah.
to,
Absolutely.
the app. Although I realize we've all been here very, very long, so I'll make this quick, although I do appreciate the opportunity for overtime. So I hope we have more long meetings like this. It's my own self-interest there. My name is Matt Keys, for those of you who don't know me in the audience. I work at the Winters Express. I don't have a local address, so I'll skip that part. I sent to John an email about a week ago, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. At the newspaper, we realized the importance of the strategic planning meetings. We want to help get the word out as much as possible. If there's anything that we can do, while we can't promise coverage on any issue, we do realize that this is something that is going to impact the city over the next 15, 20 years, and perhaps even beyond that. I did an article on it when we were discussing, or when the council was discussing when the calendar was being put together. It looks like that's moving forward, which is good news. And since we're taking the opportunity to talk about some of the planning going forward, there was a discussion at the last city council meeting about possibly videotaping or live streaming the meetings themselves. Is that correct? There was some discussion about that. If that's something that the council is considering and the city is still considering, we would like that resource to be available publicly. If it is a live stream or if it is a video, some way that we could get that so that people that may not be able to show up in person can at least participate by observing. So if that's something that's still under consideration and maybe is possibly the next step forward, we can't participate in the creation of that process, but we would at least like to be kept in the loop.
So yeah, thank you. We appreciate your willingness to get the word out to the city and all our residents, and we welcome you to all the meetings. And I know we've talked about looking into some way of doing a video, broadcasting them live. I don't think we've solved that issue yet, but that's something we're still looking into, John.
Yeah. Easier said than done.
Yeah.
Small groups, it's easier. Larger group, it's not as easy. It's something that we're looking at. I can tell you that I talked with our IT guy today a little bit about some options on some things. We're looking into it. But the best bet is if people come to the meeting.
Comment. I can say that I know that John's looking into it because it's been bugging him.
It's good.
And so I'll keep bugging him.
I got that. Yeah, I clearly got the
bugs in stereo.
We just need to be able to take that camera that's up there and move it to wherever we're having our meetings and plug it in, right?
and broadcast.
Just that easy.
People get it and figure out how to
It's just
cache
that
everything
yes.
and save it, and where it falls under the Brown Act and the public meeting records requirements and all those fun things.
Yep.
We could. That's, maybe Al Jazeera will pick it up and we'll be all over the world, everywhere.
All right, in the interest of time, it is getting late, and we have one more agenda item. Let's move on to the City of Winters app.
Mayor and council, staff's bringing a proposal tonight. Basically, it's a tool that we'd like to implement over the years as the advent of smartphones and mobile devices and ways for people to communicate with the city. There's so many forums that people communicate. Well, the ability of the city to put together something technologically that can address a number of issues. People wishing to let us know about maintenance issues or graffiti or problems at the park. And a consolidated community calendar, the ability for people that use their mobile devices to pay bills or to request for building inspections. Went through, we looked at an app that quite frankly, as we got the presentation, it really fits into our ability to put something on social media and to answer, whether it's on Facebook, put it on the city's webpage. It can be in the App Store for multiple devices, whether it's Apple devices or Samsung devices or Galaxy or whatever we're talking about. And it's the ability to have it in multiple places. I think probably one of the most frustrating things that we get is obviously with the advent of social media, there's a lot of people that we found would rather show some issues on social media versus picking up the phone and giving us a call. The ability to say, here, if you see something, here's an app, go ahead and it gives you multiple options for doing that. The first year cost involves a couple of things that you can just follow me. There's a setup cost with the service, and then from there out, there's an annual maintenance fee on it, which comes out to about $3,000. I put down the fiscal impact of about $6,000, and obviously what I've put here doesn't equal that. But imagine the idea is the new hotels come online, our ability to have something that would have a QR code that said, if you see an issue, the ability to put some signs up in the parks that says, here, if you have an issue, download the Winters app and communicate your issue to us. So I've built in a little bit of advertising and the ability for us to make and print up some signs on some of these signs. The My Civic proposal, like I said, it looks like something, it's got multiple modules. We probably won't use all the modules up front, but buying into the software, you get access to those. My guess is that working with the Chamber of Commerce and internally, there'll be a little bit of effort at the outset of it, but then from there, it'll just be kind of a maintenance mode for us also. But I think the idea of implementing that type of technology can do nothing but benefit us. And who knows, as things expand technologically, there are other things that can be added into it. I included some information in the agenda packet, and I'm happy to try and answer any questions.
So for that $3,000 a year annual maintenance, what do they do?
Just the idea of keeping the app up and going, and obviously there's a whole technological side of how it works. Obviously they would support the app through their own software and devices, and my guess is that it all falls into the cloud, or at least something that's internet based. So for $3,000, basically you're getting maintenance. I would describe it very similar to the maintenance that we pay on our phone system. There's obviously a lot of software and mechanics that go along with that. But it's the idea of just keeping everything current.
So city staff has to do all the input of any data, anything that we want on this app. It's gonna be someone in the office here entering all that in there.
Correct.
I like the idea, especially the building inspection request, that discussion we got a little bit. With our new TI Tuesday program and having this type of thing that people can request that through an app would be great, and the bill payment part of it, a lot of good features on there. Yes.
I have a question. The dinosaur here. Or how does that senior citizen building have a computer and knowledge? How do they learn something? They have a walled off fence system.
I don't think I necessarily describe it. It requires somebody who has the ability to use either, a smartphone or some type of mobile device. But if they can get on the computer, one of the applications from this is your ability to, go onto Facebook and get the app, put it on your computer to use. So at the end of the day, whoever wants to use this is going to have some acumen in using technology. Or they can just pick up the phone and call us.
Can I jump in on that? So as part of the my senior task force, as part of the senior task force, we often talked about the need to have more computer support to our older population. And with that, there have been classes at the library to support people being able to use their technology. But it would be something that we could do like at the senior center and senior apartments or in a public facility where you have somebody turn on their phone and then you have them find their app store or whatever it's called if it's not an Apple device, and go to the search engine and then put in My Civic, and then it downloads and you pick your city. So I did it today, and I picked this, since we're not on there yet. I picked the city of Aliso Viejo. And of course, and then I picked different cities, but some of them want you to put in a user profile right away. They want your name and where you live. And then some of them don't, but there's, graffiti. You could, take a picture of graffiti and send it to the city. Oh, it's right there on Fifth Avenue. Illegal dumping. It could be something wrong with the park, but so I think this would be a great addition for the city of Winters. But anybody in the community, whether they're elderly or a child, could still pick up the phone and call, Carol or call anybody at the city and say, hey, there's a problem. But for the people that aren't picking up the phone and they're just mainly venting with contempt online that things aren't done, but they're not actually calling the city of Winters, this is the avenue that they might be most comfortable with, to just jump on, let the city know, and communicate to the people who can actually address the problem. I hope that answers it.
Is Shelley okay with us moving forward with this kind of?
Yeah, Shelley was right on board as we went. We had a number of people from the city staff in there, and we're like, inevitably it's going to enhance overall efficiency on some things, and hopefully it'll prevent some certain fire drills that we end up going through on things. I can tell you, we'll put really good signs in the parks and all the restrooms. one of the areas that we've really gotten trashed over on, especially on social media, is somebody will go in and go, look what a mess this restroom is at the park, and they'll sit there and they'll put up 5 pictures of it online, but not call us. So anyway, we'll be able to go, hey, here's a way for you to do all this stuff.
So you'll also be able to send out like mass notifications if you have some type of emergency alert we need to get out. You can do that through here.
Yeah, push notifications would be good. I think probably the first people we're going to sign up is everybody that lives in Golden Bear City and Casitas Road. They'll be the first ones in. Matter of fact, we would make it mandatory. We won't tell them when the fire's coming. We push notifications.
Any other comments? Put it up for a motion. So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. We have, the motion passes with 3 affirmative, 1 against. And the last thing we have tonight is the city manager's report.
Very quickly, over the past 2 weeks, we've given out 5 permits on TI Tuesday. So good news on that front. So far, so good with everything in the building department. I think we're getting everybody up to speed as far as all the contractors and everybody goes. So far, so good. And it's 10 o'clock. So,
Everybody remember to go to the Harvest Festival on the 26th downtown. Great event. See you there. If nothing else, I will adjourn the meeting at 10 p.m.
We haven't been out this late so long. That's so long, I told you not to put your stuff with me.
the microphone.
Oh, you
What happens when you invite
You said you had to joke.
to so long.
That was like lunchtime.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm excited about that app.
There's like 90% of the sites aren't permitted and don't have an opportunity to be properly checked out.
Yeah, we talked about that kind of in the process of trying to figure out how to streamline it.
What was
how to
that
make
boy's
it
name,
easy,
Francisco Guzman?
specifically.
Somebody needs to hire him. Oh my
I know
God.
that we can get on all the HVAC stuff.
He was, he's awesome.
Basic stuff that
Tracy.
you can do
See, Ethan, does it
online.
feel like you're in Davis tonight?
All of that.
Not